Prologue. My fated mate was getting married today, just not to me. The rhythmic thrum of the ceremonial drum vibrated through the soles of my worn boots, each beat a hammer striking my chest. I stood hidden among the trees, their gnarled branches offering little comfort, and I watched. Watched as Bura, my fated mate, knelt before Emily. Watched as he took Emily's hand, his fingers, once so familiar against mine, now entwined with another's. And then the words came, spoken by the Alpha and echoing across the moonlit clearing. By the ancient laws, and with the blessing of the moon goddess, I hereby declare Bura and Emily mated. The pronouncement, meant to be a joyous affirmation, tore through me like a physical blow. It wasn't just a ceremony, it was a public declaration of my utter irrelevance. 3 moons since my world had shattered, since the fated bond that had promised me everything had been brutally severed. I remembered Bura's haunted eyes, the agonized whisper of "I'm sorry." But that memory was cold comfort now. Not when his gaze, once mine, now held a tender warmth as he looked at Emily. A warmth I had only dreamt of finding again. A strangled gasp escaped me, quickly masked by the rustle of leaves. The pack cheered, their roar clawing at my throat. This was the life I was supposed to have. The mate I was destined for. Instead, I was an invisible phantom, lost in the shadows, haunted by what was, what could have been, and what now, unequivocally, never would be. The scent of damp earth and dying leaves filled my nose, a grim, grounding comfort in the suffocating quiet. I clung to a gnarled branch, my knuckles white. "Don't look," a desperate voice whispered in my mind. But I couldn't tear my eyes away from Emily's wide, triumphant smile as she leaned in, whispering something in Bura's ear. His head tilted, and then a faint, genuine smile touched his mouth. Not the haunted look he wore when our paths crossed. A fresh wave of pain, sharp and sudden, pierced through me. It wasn't just the memory of loss, it was the vivid, unbearable reality. He was moving on. He was happy. And I was here, in the shadows, clinging to the remnants of a shattered dream. I turned sharply, no longer able to bear the sight. I just ran, not into the clearing, not toward the pack that had once been my world. I ran deeper into the forest, into the silent, watchful dark, away from the light, away from the laughter, away from the life that should have been mine. My heart, a raw, exposed nerve, pounded against my ribs, echoing the hollow ache that had become my constant companion. Chapter 1. I ran without thought, my wolf form a blur of dark gray against the deepening twilight. My lungs burned, my muscles screamed, but the physical pain was a dull ache compared to the torment inside. I didn't stop until I collapsed near the pack's outer stream, the cold water a shocking balm against my burning fur. The air here was thin, cutting, a welcome contrast to the thick, cloying happiness radiating from the pack house. Shifting back, the damp chill of the night air bit at my skin, but I welcomed it. Feeling anything besides the grief was a relief. I pulled my worn shift tighter around me, shivering, then pressed my face into my knees. Tears came, hot and relentless, blurring the faint starlight. I didn't try to stop them. There was no one here to see, no one to judge my weakness, no one to offer hollow platitudes about moving on. He chose her. The words, Emily's cruel whisper from earlier, hammered in my mind. It wasn't just that Bura had mated with someone else, it was the public, undeniable severance of their bond. I could still feel the tearing, the phantom agony where their souls had once been knit together. The moon goddess herself had marked them 3 years ago when their wolves first shifted. Cecilia, the Omega's daughter, and Bura, the Alpha's son. An unlikely match, but a fated one. They'd laughed, dreamed, planned. I'd been over the moon, my heart swelling with a joy I now knew was foolish, naive. Now my heart felt like a hollowed-out gourd, dry and cracked. My parents gone, swallowed by the attack that had decimated our pack. My mate gone, given away for political alliances. My future gone, a mirage that had vanished with the dawn, all ripped away in one brutal, swift stroke. The attack that claimed my parents had also weakened the pack, leaving us vulnerable. And in their weakness, the Alpha had demanded Bura secure an alliance with Emily. A simple, ruthless equation where my life and my love were merely variables to be discarded. A twig snapped nearby, pulling me sharply from my spiral of despair. I instinctively tensed, my senses flaring. A familiar scent, one that had once brought comfort, now brought only a fresh wave of pain that threatened to drown me. Cecilia, Bura's voice, hesitant and low, drifted through the trees, laced with a familiar concern that only twisted the knife deeper. My breath hitched. I didn't move, praying he hadn't seen me. But of course he had. He was an alpha in training, sharp-eyed even in the dim light. He emerged from the shadows, his expression shadowed, eyes searching. He looked tired, even haunted, the celebratory glow of the ceremony seemingly having bypassed him completely. The brief, genuine smile I'd glimpsed on his face earlier was utterly gone, replaced by the familiar guilt I was tired of seeing. "What are you doing out here?" he asked, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "You should be in the pack house." I slowly straightened, refusing to cower. I met his gaze, my own eyes, I knew, probably red-rimmed and fierce from crying. "And risk tainting your perfect mating ceremony with my brokenness." My voice was flat, laced with a bitterness I no longer tried to hide. It was cold, cutting. "Wouldn't want to upset your true Luna on her special night, would we?" Bura flinched as if I'd struck him. A muscle jumped in his jaw. "Cecilia, please. You know it wasn't a choice. You know my father." "Wasn't it?" I scoffed, a raw, humorless sound that scraped against my throat. "You stood there. You let him sever our bond. You took her hand. You said the words." My voice cracked on the last word, betraying the controlled anger. "You broke me, Bura. You shattered everything I was. What more do you want from me?" His jaw tightened, his gaze falling away from mine. "I did what I had to do for the pack," he muttered, running a hand through his dark hair, a familiar gesture of distress. "My father's orders. Our survival depended on it." "And what about mine?" My voice rose, thin and sharp, piercing the night's quiet. "What about my survival, Bura? Did that factor into your calculations when you ripped my soul in two?" A harsh laugh bubbled up, bordering on hysteria, empty and mocking. "Oh no, I forgot. Omega wolves aren't as important. And an Omega wolf without parents, even less so. Just a burden, right?" He stepped forward, reaching for me, his hand hovering uncertainly, wanting to offer comfort I couldn't bear to receive. "Don't say that. You know that's not true. You're strong, Cecilia. You've always been strong." I recoiled as if burned, pushing myself back away from his touch. "Don't touch me," I whispered, my voice trembling with barely contained rage and agony. "Go back to your perfect new mate, Bura. Go celebrate your perfect new life, the one built on the ashes of mine. Just leave me to rot." I turned from him, my back rigid, unwilling to let him see the fresh, hot tears that streamed down my face. I heard him hesitate, a long, drawn-out moment of silence that felt like an eternity, before his footsteps finally receded. Fading back into the direction of the pack house, towards the light, towards Emily, towards the life he had chosen over me. Only when his scent was completely gone did I allow myself to crumble back to the earth, hugging my knees, a silent, desolate cry tearing through me. The night was cold, vast, and uncaring, just like my future felt now. Chapter 2. 3 years. It felt like a lifetime, a fragile dream shattered by the harsh light of reality. Yet the memory of that day, my 18th birthday, was so vivid it could have been yesterday. The scent of pine and fresh-baked bread still clung to my senses when I closed my eyes, the air alive with anticipation. Everyone in the pack had gathered in the clearing, the mood buzzing with excitement. Not just for my birthday, but for the shifts. Every young wolf's 18th year brought the full manifestation of their wolf, and with it, the possibility of finding their fated mate. I remember my stomach fluttering with nerves and hope. My parents, despite their Omega status, were there, beaming with pride, their hands clasped in silent support. Papa, his fur already starting to silver at the temples, gave my shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "Breathe, little wolf," he'd whispered, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "The goddess has a plan for you." And then it came. Not with a bang, but a surge, a shift in my very core. My bones stretched, muscles rippled, and the human skin tightened, then tore. A dizzying rush of power, a primal instinct taking over. The world sharpened, sense exploded, sounds amplified. I was a wolf. A sleek, dark gray wolf, smaller than some, but agile, my paws eager to touch the earth. The freedom was exhilarating, intoxicating. But it was what came next that stole my breath. A pull, not just a shift in my body, but in my soul. Like a magnetic force, an invisible thread tugging me, strong and undeniable, towards him, Bura. He had shifted moments before me, a magnificent black wolf, already standing tall and proud amongst the others, a natural leader even then. As my eyes, now amber in my wolf form, met his deep blue ones, a jolt went through me. A warmth bloomed in my chest, spreading through every vein, a recognition so profound it brought tears to my wolf's eyes. It was him, my fated mate. The goddess had truly blessed us. A roar of celebration erupted from the pack. It was rare for fated mates to discover their bond so immediately, and even rarer for an alpha's son to be fated to an omega's daughter. But the joy was undeniable. My parents were crying, hugging each other, their faces alight with a mixture of pride and relief. Alpha Thorn, Bura's father, had clapped Bura on the back, a grim smile on his face, but he'd given me a nod too, a flicker of acceptance in his hard eyes. Bura shifted back, his face alight with a smile that reached his eyes, a pure, unburdened joy I hadn't seen on him since. He walked towards me, his gaze never leaving mine, and when I shifted back, he pulled me into his arms. "Cecilia," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "I knew it, I just knew it." He pulled back, cupping my face in his hands, his thumbs tracing my cheekbones. "You're my destiny, my Luna." I laughed then, a joyous, bubbling sound that spilled out of me. "You too, Bura, you're mine." We stood there, oblivious to the cheering, lost in the miracle of our bond. We talked for hours that night, huddled together by the bonfire, dreaming of our future. Our children, our pack, the changes we'd bring. He admired my wit, he said, my ability to make others laugh, my unwavering spirit. I adored his strength, his quiet kindness, his earnest desire to be a good leader. It was perfect. A future laid out before us, bathed in the moon's gentle glow. A promise etched in our souls. A promise that now, standing alone by the stream, felt like a cruel joke, a mockery of the life I'd been so stupid to believe in. The warmth of that memory was a bitter poison in my veins, reminding me of everything I'd lost, every dream that had turned to dust. Chapter 3. The memory of Bura's smile, of our whispered dreams, faded into the present as if a heavy curtain had fallen. Now, only the hollow ache in my chest remained, a constant reminder of the day the light died. It wasn't gradual. It was sudden, brutal, and without mercy. We were gathered in the main den, the evening quiet and calm after a successful hunt. My parents were beside me, Papa telling a quiet, funny story that had Mama's low laughter rumbling through her chest. The pack felt safe, whole. Then, a shriek, not human, not wolf, but something in between, a sound of pure terror, ripped from a patrol wolf at the border. The alarm was instantaneous. Alphas roared commands. Wolves snarled, shifting mid-stride. Fear, sharp and acrid, filled the air, mingling with the familiar scent of our pack. But beneath it, a new, horrifying smell began to seep in. Raw blood and something wilder, colder alien. I shifted without thinking, my wolf's instincts overriding my human fear. My dark gray fur bristled, hackles rising. I was small compared to the warriors, but my teeth were sharp, my body agile. I stayed close to my parents, my wolf pushing them behind me, a fierce, primal need to protect coursing through my veins. Papa, older now, still shifted easily, his eyes grim. Mama, always the calmest, gripped my shoulder, her silent strength a small comfort. The attacking wolves burst into the clearing. They weren't from any pack we knew. Larger, gaunter, with eyes that held no light, only a chilling hunger. They moved like shadows, striking with brutal efficiency. Snarls, howls, the sickening thud of bodies hitting the ground. The air became thick with the metallic tang of blood, the desperate scent of fear, and the iron stench of battle. I darted in and out, snapping at ankles, trying to draw attention, feeling utterly useless against their ferocity. Chaos was a living thing, swirling around us. I saw Bura, already in his black wolf form, a whirlwind of muscle and teeth, tearing into attackers, his roars of defiance echoing across the clearing. He was magnificent, terrifying, but there were too many, so many. I heard Mama cry out, a sharp, choked sound. My head whipped around. An attacker, gaunt and deadly, had broken through our makeshift defense. Papa, bless his brave heart, threw himself in front of Mama, a desperate shield. I lunged, a desperate gray streak, aiming for the attacker's leg, but I was too slow, too small. The world slowed down. I saw the attacker's jaws close on Papa's throat, a spray of dark blood, and then Papa's beloved, kind eyes, wide with shock, fading. He collapsed, a heavy, lifeless weight. "Papa!" My human cry tore through my wolf's throat. Mama screamed then, a raw, primal sound of agony, dropping to her knees beside him. Her human form, suddenly frail, was exposed. The same attacker, or perhaps another, moved with terrifying speed. I threw myself forward, a desperate, last-ditch effort, but a strong paw slammed into my side, sending me skidding across the blood-slicked ground. I cried out, tasting dirt and blood in my mouth, pain searing through me. When I pushed myself up, my vision blurry, it was already too late. I saw it. I saw Mama fall, saw her life flicker out like a candle in a brutal wind. Her eyes, so full of love moments before, now stared blankly at the darkening sky, just like Papa. A guttural sob tore itself from my chest, my wolf whimpering in profound agony. The fight still raged around me, a blur of teeth and claws, but all I could see were their still forms, lying side by side. My parents. Gone, both of them. The warmth that had always surrounded me, their unconditional love, extinguished in an instant. My own pain, the searing wound in my side, meant nothing. The fear, the chaos, it all receded, replaced by a cold, devastating numbness. My world, which had glowed so brightly with the promise of a fated mate and a loving family just moments ago, was now nothing but ashes and cold, barren grief. I didn't howl. I didn't move. I just knelt there, my wolf whimpering softly, staring at the shattered remains of my life. Chapter 4. The days that followed the attack bled into one another, a blur of aching numbness. My soul felt flayed, every breath a shallow struggle. The pack house, usually bustling, became a somber tomb, thick with the scent of fear, mourning, and medicinal herbs. My parents' absence was a gaping, screaming hole in my world, a constant, dull ache that overshadowed everything. Sleep offered no escape. It brought only fragmented nightmares of teeth and blood and falling bodies. I often woke up screaming, the terror real and visceral, my throat raw from the sound. And then he was there. Bura. Not Alpha Bura, not the future leader, but my Bura. He was my shield, my anchor in the swirling chaos of grief. He settled beside my cot in the communal den, a strong, comforting presence. He didn't speak much during those moments, just held me, murmuring soft, wordless assurances. Sometimes he brought me a cup of broth or a piece of bread I couldn't swallow, patiently urging me to eat. He was grieving too, I knew, for the lost pack members, for the devastation. But his attention, his quiet care, stayed fixed on me, a constant, unwavering warmth that kept the worst of the cold dread at bay. He was the only one who seemed to understand the depth of the darkness I was drowning in. For those few precious days, he was all I had left. Then the summons came. Not a gentle request from an elder, but a direct, unyielding command delivered by a grim-faced warrior. "The Alpha requires your presence, Cecilia, and yours, Bura, in his den, immediately." My stomach clenched, a cold knot of dread tightening within me. My wolf stirred, a flicker of unease rippling through my desolate core. The Alpha's private den, usually a place of quiet power, felt colder than usual, draped in a heavy silence that pressed down on me. Thorn sat behind his large, carved desk of dark, heavy wood, his expression like chiseled stone, his dark eyes missing nothing. "Cecilia," Alpha Thorn said, his voice deep, resonating with undisputed authority, completely devoid of warmth or sympathy. "Bura. Our pack has suffered a grievous blow," Thorn continued, his voice a low rumble, his eyes sweeping over us, assessing, calculating. His words were precise, unhurried, like a surgeon detailing a necessary amputation. "We lost too many warriors. Our borders are vulnerable. Our strength is diminished. We cannot afford another attack." He paused, letting his words hang in the tense air, allowing the weight of our recent tragedy to settle like a shroud. "We need to fortify our alliances, immediately, before our weakness is exploited further." My heart hammered against my ribs, a sudden, frantic bird trapped in a cage. A chill snaked down my spine. I didn't like the direction this was going. I remembered the vague whispers I'd overheard from older pack members about strategic matings, but they always seemed distant, abstract, never connected to my life. "The Northern Peak Pack," Thorn said, his voice crisp like cracking ice. Their alpha is a powerful leader. Their warriors are formidable, and he has a daughter, Emily. His gaze, sharp and unwavering, settled on Bura, pinning him. A strong alliance with them would guarantee our immediate protection, bring us much-needed resources, and solidify our standing in these uncertain times. It is crucial for our survival. Then his gaze shifted from Bura to me, and for the first time I felt the full, cold calculation in his eyes. It was like being assessed for a trade, a piece of property, a means to an end. My fated bond, my very existence, reduced to a bargaining chip. Bura is my son, the next alpha, Thorn declared, his voice rising with authority that brooked no argument. His choices must serve the pack above all else. His duty is paramount. He fixed his gaze on Bura, his voice dropping to a low, commanding tone, each word a hammer blow. You will mate with Emily. The ceremony will take place at the next full moon. The words hit me like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. My mind screamed, no, this isn't real. My body trembled violently, a tremor that started in my knees and shook every bone. I struggled to breathe, feeling faint, as if the very air had been sucked from the room. This couldn't be happening. Our fated bond. The goddess's will. It was sacred, inviolable. You couldn't just break something so profound. Bura flinched, his head snapping up, his blue eyes finally meeting mine, wide with a raw, agonizing despair that mirrored my own. A flicker of protest crossed his face, a silent plea for understanding, for forgiveness, for a way out. He opened his mouth, then closed it, his jaw clenching so hard I saw the muscle jump. He couldn't defy his father, not the alpha, not when the survival of the pack hung in the balance. His helplessness was palpable, but it offered me no comfort, only a deeper despair. The man who had shielded me through my nightmares was now being forced to cut me from his life. The fated bond, Alpha, I managed to whisper, my voice hoarse, barely audible, a desperate, raw sound. The goddess blessed us. You can't just break it. It's an insult to her. My entire being shook, but I forced the words out, a last, desperate plea for justice. Thorn's eyes, cold as winter ice, fixed on me, dismissing my desperate plea like an irritating fly. The goddess's will is sometimes complicated, Omega, he said, his voice flat, final, and utterly unfeeling. And the pack's survival takes precedence over any individual's destiny, no matter how fated. The bond will be severed, for the good of the pack. It is already arranged. His words left no room for argument, no shred of hope. My entire world reeled, not just from the loss, but from this crushing betrayal. Severed. The word hung in the air, a death knell for everything I was, everything I had hoped to be. Not just my mate taken, but the very essence of my soul ripped apart. I looked at Bura again, pleading with my eyes, begging him to fight, to speak, to do something. He looked back, haunted, broken, utterly helpless, trapped. There was no defiance in him, only bleak resignation. The man who had been my comfort, my shield, my last hope, now stood by, silent and compliant, as his father condemned me to a living death. I wanted to scream, to rage, to tear the den apart with my bare hands, to remind them that my parents had died for this pack, for their survival. But the words died in my throat. My limbs felt heavy, useless. I was an Omega's daughter, now an orphan, stripped of my parents and my mate, stripped of my last protector. I was nothing. A sacrifice. And there was nothing I could do but stand there, utterly broken, as my future was brutally dictated, extinguished like a flame in a hurricane. The cold finality of it wrapped around me, crushing me completely. Chapter 5. The weight of Alpha Thorn's decree hung over me like a death shroud, growing heavier with each passing tick of the sun's shadow. Every day felt like a countdown to my own execution. Bura, my shield through the nightmares, my solace in the face of despair, had become a ghost in the pack house. He avoided my gaze, his shoulders more slumped than usual, his face etched with a profound guilt I was both weary of seeing and desperate to acknowledge. It was a stark reminder that even his protection, his quiet comfort, had limits, limits dictated by his father and the cold, unfeeling demands for the pack's survival. The silent betrayal, the slow fade of his presence, hurt almost as much as the initial wound of my parents' deaths. The day of the severing arrived with a chilling, gray dawn that mirrored the bleakness in my soul. The air was heavy, not just with the dampness of an approaching storm, but with a palpable tension that hummed through the clearing. The pack gathered in the ceremonial clearing, the very same hallowed ground where Bura and I had discovered our fated bond, where my parents had been taken from me. The irony was a bitter, metallic taste on my tongue. Now, this sacred space would witness the tearing apart of something meant to be eternal, an unholy ritual. I was led to the center, my steps heavy, my heart a leaden stone in my chest. Two solemn elders, their faces grim and etched with the weight of the ritual they were about to perform, stood on either side of me. The whispers from the pack were like buzzing insects, a suffocating cloud surrounding me. Pity, curiosity, judgment, I felt them all, 1,000 pinpricks against my already raw skin. I kept my gaze fixed on the muddy ground, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. I couldn't bear to see the sympathy that would only amplify my humiliation, or the morbid fascination of those who had never lost so much. Then he emerged, Bura, from the Alpha's den, escorted by Thorn himself. My breath hitched, catching painfully in my throat. He looked like a man walking to his own demise, stripped bare and exposed. His face was starkly pale, his eyes hollow, dark shadows beneath them proclaiming his own torment. He looked at me then, a desperate flicker of raw agony in his gaze, a silent, agonizing plea for forgiveness that almost broke the steely control I had forced upon myself. A part of me, a small, foolish part, still yearned for him to roar, to refuse, to fight. But then Emily appeared by his side, gliding smoothly as if on ice. Her hand, delicate and possessive, slipped into his arm, her body subtly pressing against him. Her smile was thin, triumphant, a sharp, cold glint in her eyes. Bura's eyes darted to her, then quickly away, back to the ground, and the brief, shared moment of connection, of silent plea and understanding, was gone. My last foolish hope for a final act of defiance from him withered and died, replaced by a fresh wave of despair. Alpha Thorn began the incantation, his voice deep and booming, reverberating through the clearing, commanding the very air. It was an ancient, powerful ritual, meant to undo what the moon goddess herself had bestowed. It required the full, conscious consent of one mate and the unwilling, agonizing presence of the other. Bura's consent was a silent, agonizing nod of his bowed head. My presence was simply mandatory, a living sacrifice. As the ancient words flowed, chanting steadily, inexorably, I felt it. A coldness, starting deep in my chest, right where Bura's presence had once been a constant, gentle hum, a comforting warmth. It wasn't just the absence, it was an active ripping. Like invisible talons tearing through my very soul, shredding the connection, shredding me. A searing, unimaginable pain exploded through my body, starting in my heart and radiating outwards, burning through every nerve. I gasped, a ragged, raw cry tearing from my throat. My vision blurred, the world tilting violently on its axis, spiraling into a tunnel of black. Every nerve ending screamed, burning with the agony of separation, of something sacred being violated. It felt like my heart was being physically ripped from my chest, piece by agonizing piece, leaving raw flesh behind. I wanted to fall, to collapse into the muddy dirt, to give in to the darkness that threatened to consume me whole. But a stubborn defiance, a small, fierce spark deep within me that had survived the attack and the initial betrayal, refused. They would not see me break. Not completely. I gripped my teeth so hard my jaw ached, clenching my fists until my nails dug into my palms, the sharp, new pain grounding me just slightly, pulling me back from the brink of oblivion. The ritual seemed to stretch for an eternity, each word of Thorn's incantation a fresh cut, each unseen tear a new wound. I felt the very essence of my wolf, entwined as she was with Bura's from our fated bond, being forcefully yanked and pulled, like a cord being stretched to breaking point, then snapped. A raw, guttural growl escaped my lips, a sound of profound animal pain, not quite human, a desperate protest from the deepest part of my being. Then, with a final, booming incantation from Thorn and a sharp, almost audible snap that echoed not in the air, but in the deepest parts of my soul, it was done. The connection, once vibrant and undeniable, was gone. Completely. The warmth, the hum, the gentle pull vanished, replaced by an aching void, a cavernous emptiness that felt impossibly cold, like a limb had been amputated from my very spirit. It felt like a part of my soul had been excised, leaving a gaping wound that would never, ever fully heal. I swayed, dizzy and lightheaded, my body screaming in protest from the trauma. My legs gave out beneath me, and I sank to my knees, shaking violently, my vision swimming. I heard gasps from the crowd, whispers of she survived. And how is she still standing? Emily's triumphant, almost gloating, voice cut through my haze, sharp and clear. "See, Bura, she's fine. It's done. You can finally move on." Bura, I saw through blurry, tear-filled eyes, stood frozen, rooted to the spot. His face was a mask of profound relief and agony, a horrifying mixture. He didn't look at me, couldn't. His eyes were fixed on Emily, then on his father, a silent agreement, a horrifying confirmation passing between them. He had made his choice. He had surrendered. And I, Cecilia, was simply the broken consequence, a casualty of pack politics. I tasted blood had I bitten my tongue. Or was it just the bitter, metallic tang of ultimate loss, a taste that would forever linger in my mouth? I pushed myself up, slowly, painfully, every muscle screaming in protest, my body feeling like it was made of lead. My head pounded with a dull throb, and a chilling hollowness filled the space where my fated bond had been. I was alive, yes. But a significant, precious part of me, the part that had dreamed of forever with Bura, was dead, buried forever in this cold, sacred clearing. My heart felt like a tombstone. Chapter 6. The days after the severing merged into a suffocating blur. My body healed, the phantom aches in my soul became a dull, constant throb, but the hollowness in my chest remained. It was a gaping wound, a stark reminder of what had been ripped away. The pack house, once my home, was now a constant torment. Every corner held a memory, every familiar face a reminder of the future I'd lost. My biggest tormentor, however, was not the whispers, nor the pitying glances, but the constant, undeniable presence of Bura and Emily. They were everywhere, a living, breathing testament to my shattered dreams. They were always together, a picture of what a true alpha pair should be. They ate at the high table, side by side. They walked through the common areas, her hand often resting on his arm, a gentle, possessive gesture. Their pack duties were performed together, public displays of unity and affection designed, I was sure, for all to see. It was in the subtle things, the glances, the easy smiles they shared, that the knife twisted deepest. I'd catch a glimpse of Bura laughing at something Emily said, a genuine, unburdened laugh that echoed the ones he used to share with me. Or I'd see him brush a stray strand of hair from her face, a tender gesture that had once been solely mine. Each small act was a dagger to my heart, tearing at the fragile scabs of my healing. I tried to avoid them, to become a shadow myself. I ate quickly, alone, slipping into the kitchens when most wolves were elsewhere. I chose routes through the pack grounds that kept me out of sight. But the pack was too small, their presence too central. There was no true escape. One afternoon, I was helping old Elder Maeve sort herbs in the quiet solitude of the healer's den. It was one of the few places I found a sliver of peace. The earthy scent of dried plants, the rhythmic rustle of leaves, offered a welcome distraction. Suddenly, the laughter and easy chatter of others drifted in from the main hall. "Oh, Bura," Emily's voice, sweet and clear, reached us. "You always make me laugh." Maeve, her movements slow but deliberate, paused, her gaze flicking towards the entrance, then settling on me. Her eyes held a deep, knowing pity that made my skin crawl. Then they were there, standing right in the doorway, framed against the light of the main hall. Bura's arm was draped loosely around Emily's waist, pulling her closer. She leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder, a picture of domestic bliss. Her golden hair glinted in the sunlight filtering through the window, catching my eye like a lure. "Elder Maeve," Bura said, his voice surprisingly bright, completely unlike the haunted tone he used when he spoke to me. "We just wanted to see if you needed anything. Emily thought you might." Emily smiled, a radiant, almost blinding smile directed solely at Maeve, radiating false concern. Her eyes, however, darted to me, a quick, almost imperceptible flicker of triumph, a glint of challenge, my breath caught. She wasn't just here for Maeve. She was here for me, to make sure I saw. My fingers tightened around the handful of mugwort I was sorting, crushing the dry leaves. The sharp, bitter scent filled my nostrils. I kept my head down, focusing intensely on the tiny stems, willing myself to become invisible. "Don't look. Don't react. Don't give her the satisfaction. That's very kind of you, Luna Emily, Maeve replied, her tone neutral, though her gaze lingered on me for a fraction too long. Oh, it's nothing, Emily chirped, then her voice dropped, a performative softness entering it. Just thinking of everyone, especially those who have been through so much recently. Her words were saccharine, meant to sound sympathetic, but the underlying jab was clear. It was a thinly veiled reference to my parents' deaths and my shattered life. Bura, oblivious or perhaps willfully ignoring the subtle malice, squeezed Emily's waist. Yes, we just want everyone to feel safe and cared for. He glanced towards me then, his eyes finding mine, and for a fleeting second the laughter died from his face. A flicker of that old guilt, that familiar regret, returned to his eyes. But it was only a second. Emily subtly shifted, pulling his attention back to her, her smile unwavering. Well, thank you both for your kindness, Maeve said, ending the conversation. Emily beamed, then gently tugged Bura away. Come on, darling, we have duties. As they turned, her eyes met mine again just for a moment. This time there was no hiding the smug satisfaction, the cold, triumphant gleam. He's mine now. The message was loud and clear. I heard their footsteps fade, their easy laughter returning as they walked away. My hands trembled, scattering the herbs I was holding. The air in the den felt thick, suffocating. Maeve sighed beside me, a soft, weary sound. She always was good at appearances, that one, Maeve murmured, not looking at me, but her voice full of empathy. Don't let it get to you, child. True strength is not in who you stand beside, but in what you carry within. I didn't answer. I couldn't. What did I carry within? Only pain, grief, and the bitter knowledge that my fated mate, the one who had once promised me forever, was now openly displaying his affection for the woman who thrived on my suffering. It felt like a constant, agonizing reminder that I was nothing. Chapter 7. The healer's den, once a refuge, now felt tainted by Emily's presence. Her words, seemingly kind to Elder Maeve, had been a poison meant solely for me. It was a pattern that had been emerging since the day of the severing, subtle at first, then growing bolder, sharper. Emily was a master of the veiled insult, the sugar-coated jab, making sure I never forgot my place or my lack thereof. She started with small things. If I happened to be near a group of pack members, sharing a quiet word with one of my few remaining friends, Emily would appear. Oh, Cecilia, she'd coo, her voice sweet enough to rot teeth. Are you sure you're up for this? You've been through so much. Perhaps you should rest. The words were supposedly caring, but her eyes, when they met mine, held a malicious gleam. They told me she knew exactly how much rest I was getting, how little sleep grief allowed. She knew it was a dig at my diminished state. Once I was helping prepare dinner, chopping vegetables, finding a small, fragile piece in the rhythmic motion. Emily swept into the kitchen, her presence demanding attention. Cecilia, she said, her voice carrying just enough to reach the other kitchen helpers. Are you certain you're using the right knife for that? Such a delicate task. Perhaps it's best left to someone, more accustomed to this kind of work now. She took the knife from my hand, gently, almost patronizingly, and passed it to another wolf, a young male warrior who looked embarrassed. The message was clear. I was no longer fit for even the simplest pack duties, certainly not those of a future Luna. My hands, once nimble and confident, felt clumsy and useless. The most frequent attacks came when Bura was nearby, though often just out of earshot, or too preoccupied with pack business to notice. Emily would ensure she was within my vicinity, then speak loudly, her voice clear. Bura said the most wonderful thing about our new den arrangements today, didn't he, darling? So thoughtful. He said he finally feels truly at home. Her emphasis on home and truly was a deliberate barb, knowing I had once helped Bura plan his den, knowing every detail of what our home would have been. My heart would clench, a cold, hard fist squeezing the breath from my lungs. She never missed an opportunity to highlight her new status. During pack meals, she would often sit closer to Bura than necessary, sometimes placing her hand on his leg beneath the table, always making sure her fingers brushed against mine if I happened to be sitting on his other side. Or she would subtly shift her chair to block my view of him, a childish but effective tactic. The pack members, for the most part, pretended not to notice. They looked away, shifted uncomfortably, or engaged in sudden, loud conversations. My few loyal friends, Lyra and Finn, would often try to intercept, distracting Emily with questions or drawing me into a separate conversation. But even their efforts couldn't completely shield me from the constant, insidious chipping away at my spirit. Emily's cruelty was designed not just to wound, but to isolate. She wanted to ensure I was completely alone, a discarded remnant of a broken prophecy. She knew my strength lay in connection, in my ability to make others laugh, in my wit. So she aimed to undermine it, to make others see me as pitiable, or worse, a bitter, jealous outcast. Every day was a battle to keep my head high, a battle to force a small smile, a battle to pretend her words didn't cut me to the bone. But most days I lost. Most days I felt myself shrinking, becoming the shadow she wanted me to be, my laughter long forgotten, replaced by a dull, aching silence. The once vibrant Cecilia was slowly, painfully being erased. Chapter 8. The slow erosion of my spirit by Emily's subtle cruelty had left me raw, exposed, a nerve ending constantly scraped. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for the blow she delivered one crisp autumn morning. I was in the communal kitchen, attempting to brew some herbal tea, a small ritual of comfort I clung to, the warmth of the mug a fragile anchor in my cold world. The quiet clinking of ceramic and the earthy scent of drying herbs offered a fleeting sense of peace. That peace shattered the moment I saw her saunter in. She was alone, which immediately sent a prickle of acute unease down my spine. Emily rarely sought me out without an audience to play to. "Cecilia," she purred, her voice sweet as honey, yet laced with a chilling undercurrent that made every hair on my arms stand on end. She leaned against the doorframe, her arms crossed casually over her chest, a knowing, predatory smile playing on her lips. Just the wolf I wanted to see. I gripped the ceramic mug tighter, my knuckles white against the dark clay. My jaw ached from clenching it so often these days. "What do you want, Emily?" My voice was flat, devoid of the usual wit she enjoyed provoking. I was too tired for games, too drained for a battle of words. She pushed off the frame, slowly, deliberately walking towards me, her eyes, those cold, calculating green eyes, never leaving mine. Her movements were graceful, almost theatrical, as if she were setting the stage for a performance. "Oh, nothing much," she drawled, stopping just a few feet away. "Just thought I'd share some good news. As future Luna, I believe in transparency. And well, you were his fated mate once, weren't you? Perhaps you'd want to know." My stomach clenched, a cold, hard knot tightening within me. Her words were a chilling warning, a prelude to something truly nasty, designed to inflict maximum pain. "No what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, a thread of dread winding around my throat. Emily stopped directly in front of me, so close I could smell the sweet, cloying floral scent of her perfume, suddenly suffocating in the small space. She lowered her voice, not to a whisper that implied secrecy, but to a confidential, almost sympathetic tone that somehow made it infinitely worse. Her eyes glittered with undisguised triumph. "Bura and I, we finally sealed our bond last night." The air left my lungs in a whoosh. My breath hitched, caught somewhere between my chest and my throat. The tea mug clattered against the counter, sloshing scalding hot liquid onto my hand. I barely registered the burn, sealed their bond. It was the unofficial term, whispered in hushed tones, for mates finally consummating their union. It was the final, irreversible step. The ultimate personal act of intimacy. An act that was supposed to be mine, with him. "Oh, Cecilia, don't look so shocked," she chided, a mock frown creasing her brow, her lips pursed in feigned concern. "It was bound to happen, wasn't it? We're mated, he's my alpha." And her voice dropped lower, becoming a venomous, almost ecstatic hiss. He was magnificent, truly. My blood ran cold, turning to ice in my veins. She wasn't just telling me, she was describing it. Her eyes, wide and glittering with malicious triumph, held mine captive, forcing me to listen, to imagine. "He called out my name," she whispered, leaning even closer, her breath warm and sickening against my ear. "Over and over, it was quite passionate. He certainly knew how to please his Luna." She paused, letting the words hang in the air, allowing them to seep into my very bones. Each word was a jagged shard of ice, piercing my skin, twisting into the raw wound in my chest. I saw it all then, Bura's shadowed eyes, the way he avoided my gaze, the heavy guilt that clung to him, the hidden truth. He had just been with her. My mate, my fated mate. My mind conjured images, unwanted and horrifying, filling in the blanks Emily's words painted. I imagine it's quite different from what you experienced with him, Emily continued, her voice dripping with false empathy, a sweet, cloying syrup designed to mask the poison. Or did you two ever even go that far? Such a shame, really, for a fated pair. But then I suppose it's hard to be truly passionate when the goddess hasn't properly bound you, is it? Her smile widened, cold and triumphant, a sneer barely disguised. The kitchen, usually a comfort, a place of warmth and industry, now spun around me. My ears roared with the blood rushing in my head, a deafening drumbeat that drowned out everything but Emily's cruel words. I felt dizzy, nauseous, as if the very air had become thick and suffocating, pressing down on my chest. It wasn't just humiliation. It was the ultimate personal violation, a brutal invasion of my most intimate dreams. She was painting a picture of a joy and passion, of a bond being fully realized, detailing something so private it was meant for only two. It was meant for us. I squeezed my eyes shut, desperate to block out her face, her mocking smile, her poisonous words. My hands trembled violently, uncontrollably. I could feel the scalding liquid on my skin, but it was nothing compared to the fire searing through my soul, burning away the last vestiges of my hope. "Get out," I choked out, my voice raw, barely a whisper, a desperate plea for her to stop. "Just get out of my sight." Emily laughed, a soft, satisfied chuckle that grated on my nerves, echoing in the too-still kitchen. "Oh, Cecilia, so dramatic, but then you always were, weren't you? Well, I just thought you should know. He truly is mine now, every inch of him." I heard her footsteps retreat, slow and deliberate, her sweet floral scent lingering like a poisonous cloud, suffocating me. I sagged against the counter, my legs giving way. The tea mug, forgotten and abandoned, slipped from my nerveless fingers and shattered on the stone floor, the sharp sound echoing in the empty kitchen, mingling with the ragged sobs that finally tore free from my chest. I slid to the ground, curling into a tight ball, wrapping my arms around myself as if to hold my broken pieces together, to shield myself from the world. The pain was overwhelming, a tidal wave of grief and betrayal that threatened to drown me completely. It wasn't just Bura's choice, or Alpha Thorn's decree, or even the brutal severing of our bond. It was this deliberate, malicious act of cruelty designed to utterly destroy me. Emily hadn't just taken my mate. She was taking every last shred of dignity, every last hope I had of ever being whole again. I was nothing, a ghost. A shattered husk, left to rot while they celebrated their stolen happiness, their perfect, consummated life. Chapter 9. The shattered ceramic of the mug on the kitchen floor mirrored the fragmented pieces of my heart. Emily's taunt, delivered with such cold precision, had sliced through the last thin thread of my composure. I lay there, curled on the cold stone, the raw sobs tearing through my chest, each one echoing the profound emptiness within me. She hadn't just told me about Bura and her. She had stripped me bare, exposed every vulnerability, and reveled in my humiliation. I was a ghost haunting my own life, and she, the new Luna, was determined to ensure I knew it. My wolf, normally a fierce, protective presence inside me, felt like a dying ember. She had been roaring in pain, howling in silent anguish, but after Emily's words, even she seemed to quiet, surrendering to the overwhelming tide of despair. In the days and weeks that followed, the pack house became an increasingly suffocating cage. It wasn't just Emily's direct assaults anymore. It was the chilling silence that followed me, the averted gazes, the subtle shifts in conversation when I entered a room. The pack, once a vibrant tapestry of interconnected lives, now felt like 1,000 eyes watching, judging, pitying. Every glance was a reminder, every averted gaze a fresh wound. I saw it first in the small, seemingly insignificant gestures. A packmate I'd often shared morning meals with, a gruff but kind warrior named Kale, would suddenly find a pressing errand across the hall when I approached the dining area. He'd mumble an apology, avoiding my eyes, his discomfort palpable. Another, a young mother whose children I used to babysit and entertain with fantastical stories by the fire, would usher their pups away, their innocent questions silenced, their smiles tight and apologetic. It wasn't overt cruelty, not like Emily S., but a chilling distance. a quiet withdrawal that spoke volumes. My quick wit, once my shield and my charm, rusted in disuse. Who was there to share a laugh with? Who would appreciate a clever retort when every word I spoke felt like a burden, a reminder of what was lost? The light in my eyes, they used to say, could brighten the darkest den. Now, even I could see the dullness when I caught my reflection in the polished surface of the communal basin. I was shrinking, becoming smaller, becoming the shadow Emily so desperately wanted me to be. The reasons, I knew, were layered and complex. Some were genuinely uncomfortable, perhaps feeling guilt for my fate or unsure how to navigate the social minefield of the deposed fated mate. Their discomfort was a mirror to my own pain. Others were pragmatic, aligning themselves quickly with the new power structure. Bura was the future alpha, Emily his chosen Luna, their union now sealed. To associate too closely with me, the rejected one, might be seen as disloyal, a slight against the new order. No one wanted to risk Alpha Thorn's cold displeasure, or Emily's sharp, subtle retaliations. My brokenness, it seemed, was contagious, a disease they feared catching. Even those who had once admired my strength, my spirit, my resilience, now saw me only as a painful reminder of shattered destiny. It was as if my very presence brought a cloud of misfortune, a dark omen. I overheard whispers, "Such a shame, but she really should move on." Or, "She's bringing down the pack's morale, clinging to what's gone." I was no longer Cecilia, the witty, beloved daughter of Omegas. I was the broken bond, the rejected one, the tragedy. My identity was being stolen, piece by agonizing piece. Only two remained unwavering in their loyalty, Lyra and Finn. Lyra, with her kind eyes and gentle touch, would often seek me out in the quiet corners of the den, bringing me a steaming mug of herbal tea or just sitting beside me in comfortable silence. "Don't listen to them, Cece," she'd murmur, her voice soft but firm, her hand gently squeezing mine. "They don't understand what you've endured. They never could." Finn, more direct, with his earnest, open face, would sometimes intercept Emily's cruelties with a sharp, well-placed distraction, or pull me into a separate conversation about pack patrols or the changing seasons, a subtle but vital attempt to shift the focus away from my misery. But even their unwavering presence couldn't shield me completely. Their help was a quiet defiance, and they couldn't be by my side every moment. I saw the strain on them, the subtle looks they received from others. Their kindness, while a lifeline, also highlighted how utterly alone I truly was. They were two small islands in a vast, cold ocean of indifference, struggling against the tide to keep me afloat. I started spending more and more time outside the pack house, wandering the familiar forest paths, my wolf restless and unhappy within me. She no longer urged me to run for the sheer joy of it, to leap or chase. The primal urge to howl at the moon, to connect with our ancestors, had vanished. She simply trudged, burdened by the weight of my grief. Her senses, once sharp and alive, seemed dulled, the vibrant sense of the forest now flat, the sounds muted. It was as if her spirit, too, had been severed, disconnected from the pack, from her purpose. She didn't growl when pack wolves passed. She didn't even shift willingly any more unless necessary. She just quit, just as I was quitting. Out there, away from the constant scrutiny and the pervasive scent of Emily's false happiness, I could almost breathe. But the silence of the forest also echoed the emptiness in my soul, a vast, aching chasm where my future once was. My laughter, once so free, so easily given, became a distant memory, replaced by a hollow echo in my own ears. My quick wit, a tool I'd wielded with joy and confidence, lay dormant, forgotten. I found myself retreating further, speaking less, observing more. The vibrant, beloved Cecilia of my past felt like a stranger, replaced by a quiet, haunted version of myself. I was not just losing my friends, I was losing me. The pack, my family, had become a foreign land, and I, its lonely exile, drifting further and further away from any shore, my wolf by my side, equally broken. Chapter 10. The weight of my own wolf's despair, mirroring my human grief, became an unbearable burden. She no longer even stirred at the scent of fresh kill or the distant echo of a pack howl. She was a silent, heavy presence within me, a constant reminder that even my primal self had given up. The pack house, once a bustling sanctuary, was now a tomb of suffocating memories and subtle hostilities. Emily's presence, like a venomous mist, permeated every common space, and her newest tactic was, perhaps, the most insidious. I was helping Elder Maeve again, sorting dried herbs in the quiet corner of the healer's den, the familiar scent of lavender and rosemary offering a fleeting sense of calm. Maeve, bless her, was the only one who didn't look at me with pity or discomfort. Her presence was a balm. Suddenly, the soft murmurs from the main hall shifted, voices rising in a saccharine chorus. "Oh, Luna Emily, how wonderful you look today. The moon goddess truly shines upon you." It was a procession. Emily, flanked by a gaggle of younger she-wolves eager for her favor, was making her grand tour of the pack house, basking in their sycophantic praise. She carried herself with an air of absolute triumph, her golden hair gleaming, her smile fixed and dazzling. Bura wasn't with her, which meant she was free to enact her cruelty without even his unwitting constraint. As they passed the entrance to the healer's den, Emily paused, her green eyes deliberately seeking me out. Her smile tightened, becoming a triumphant sneer, but her voice remained sickeningly sweet. "Cecilia," she called out, her voice carrying clearly. "Still wasting away in here, I see. It's a shame. Bura mentioned he had so many plans for the Luna's garden. A beautiful project for us, I suppose. Some things just aren't meant to be, are they?" The jab was sharp, precise. The Luna's garden was a project Bura and I had planned meticulously, a place of peace and beauty we dreamed of cultivating together. Her words twisted the knife in the deepest part of my soul. I felt my face flush, a sudden heat burning my cheeks, followed by a dizzying cold. One of the younger she-wolves, an eager, pretty thing named Lyra, not my friend Lyra, but a different, far more superficial one, giggled. "Oh, Luna Emily, you're so kind to even notice her. She really does look rather frail." The words, delivered with a simpering laugh, were like a physical shove. Frail, me, Cecilia, whose wolf had once outrun the fastest warriors, whose wit had matched any elder. I felt a tremor begin in my hands, then spread through my entire body. It was too much. The public humiliation, the constant reminders, the crushing weight of everything. My own wolf, stirring from her quiet despair, let out a low, guttural growl that resonated only in my mind. Not a growl of anger, but of raw, wounded pride. "Enough," she whimpered. "We cannot bear more." I stood up slowly, my legs shaky, but my resolve hardening with every deliberate movement. I met Emily's gaze, ignoring the other she-wolves. Her triumphant smile faltered slightly, surprised by my sudden directness. "You're right, Emily," I said, my voice hoarse but steady, though it took every ounce of my remaining strength. "Some things aren't meant to be, and some people are just toxic." My gaze flicked to the cowering she-wolves around her, then back to Emily, a silent challenge in my eyes. "Perhaps the Luna's garden will flourish better without a viper in its midst." Emily's sweet facade cracked. Her green eyes narrowed, blazing with cold fury. "How dare you, Omega?" But I didn't wait for her retort. The words had drained me of everything. A profound weariness, deeper than any physical exhaustion, settled over me. There was nothing left here for me. No hope, no peace, no future. Just endless, agonizing reminders. My wolf whimpered inside me, a desperate plea for escape. I turned sharply, not bothering to offer an explanation to Maeve, though I felt her empathetic gaze on my back. I pushed past the shocked gaggle of she-wolves, their murmurs dying as I approached. I needed out. Out of the den, out of the pack house, out of this suffocating existence. My heart, a raw, exposed nerve, screamed for true freedom, for a place where the air didn't taste of betrayal and shattered dreams. I ran, not towards any specific destination, but away. Away from the pack, away from the pain, away from the person I was slowly, irrevocably becoming. I ran for my life, even if I didn't know what that life looked like anymore. Just away. Chapter 11. The scent of dry leaves and my own desperation filled my nostrils as I burst from the pack house. My human form felt too small, too fragile to contain the storm raging inside me. I needed to run. I needed to outrun the pain, the whispers, Emily's cruel smile. I needed to outrun myself. I didn't head for the well-worn pack trails, where I might encounter patrols or other wolves. Instead, I veered off into the denser parts of the forest, weaving through thick undergrowth, scrambling over fallen logs. My muscles screamed in protest, unused to this kind of prolonged, unthinking exertion, but I pushed harder. The physical ache was a welcome distraction from the searing emotional wounds. My wolf, who had been a silent, grieving shadow within me for so long, stirred with a faint tremor of life. It wasn't the joyous surge of freedom I'd felt on my 18th birthday, but a desperate, primal urge to flee. "Run," she urged, her voice a low thrum in my mind. Further. Faster. I felt the familiar shift begin, a painful stretching of my bones, a ripple of power beneath my skin. In seconds, I was on all fours, my dark gray fur a blur against the twilight. The world sharpened, becoming a kaleidoscope of rushing trees, blurring shadows, and the earthy scent of the forest floor. My paws pounded the ground, a relentless rhythm, matching the frantic beat of my heart. The forest swallowed me whole. I ran until my lungs burned, until the air felt like fire in my throat. Branches whipped at my fur, thorns tore at my skin, but I barely noticed. My senses were heightened, yet paradoxically, my mind was a blank slate, focused only on the relentless rhythm of my escape. I leaped over streams, scrambled up rocky inclines, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I was no longer Cecilia, the broken Omega, but just a wolf, driven by instinct, by the desperate need to escape. Hours passed, or perhaps only minutes. Time lost all meaning. The moon rose, a pale, indifferent eye in the inky sky, casting long, eerie shadows that danced with my desperation. My powerful wolf legs, capable of covering vast distances, carried me further than I had ever dared to venture before. Every fiber of my being was screaming for release, for oblivion, for a place where no memories, no pain, no Emily, no Bura could reach me. I ran until my muscles spasmed, until my paws ached with a dull, throbbing pain. My fur was matted with sweat and dirt, my tongue lolling. I stumbled, then caught myself pushing forward. Just a little further, just away. The dense forest began to thin, giving way to sparser woods, the trees taller and older. The scent of familiar pack territory had long faded, replaced by unfamiliar earthy notes, hints of different pines, different undergrowth. My wolf, even in her grief-stricken state, sensed the change, the subtle shift in the air that spoke of new boundaries. But I didn't care. I couldn't stop. The force driving me was stronger than any territorial instinct, stronger than any fear of the unknown. I was crossing borders. I knew it deep in my bones. But the thought held no fear, only a strange sense of liberation. What did I have left to lose? My pack had cast me out, my mate had betrayed me. There was nothing to bind me. So I ran, pushing through the last vestiges of my strength, driven by a raw, primal need to put as much distance as possible between myself and the shattered life I had left behind. I ran until exhaustion finally claimed me, until my legs buckled, and I collapsed, not caring where I was, only that I was away. Chapter 12. I collapsed, my body screaming in protest, too exhausted to even shift back to my human form. My wolf lay panting on the cold earth, every muscle trembling, every breath a ragged gasp. The air was different here, crisper, carrying unfamiliar scents of high mountain pines and distant, wilder game. I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my aching bones, that I had run far beyond the familiar boundaries of my former pack. I had crossed into the territory of a border pack, one I knew only by reputation, a pack that prided itself on its vigilance. The fear, which had been a dull echo in my desperate flight, began to prickle at the edges of my exhausted mind. Trespassing was a serious offense, especially for a lone wolf. I should shift back, try to look less like a wild animal, but the energy simply wasn't there. My wolf, usually restless, was now profoundly still, her exhaustion absolute. She had truly given her all, driven by a despair that transcended caution. A distant snap of a twig, then another, cut through the quiet of the unfamiliar woods. My ears twitched, picking up the heavy, deliberate footfalls of large wolves. Not light, casual steps. These were measured, patrolling strides. My fur bristled instinctively, a remnant of my wolf's natural defense, but the primal urge to flee was dulled by utter fatigue. I was caught. Seconds later, two massive forms emerged from the shadows, their fur dark against the moonlit forest floor. They were pack enforcers, unmistakable in their alert postures and the sense of authority that clung to them. Their eyes, sharp and intelligent, fixed on me instantly. I could feel their immediate suspicion, the assessment of my lone, trespassed presence. They circled me slowly, their growls low and guttural, a warning that vibrated through the ground. I didn't move, couldn't. I flattened myself to the earth, exposing my neck in a submissive gesture, the only sign of respect I could offer in my wolf form. It was an instinct, a plea for understanding rather than aggression. One of them, larger than the other, let out a sharper bark. It was a command to shift. I closed my eyes, summoning every last ounce of strength, and with a painful shimmer, my bones rearranged themselves, and I collapsed onto the cold dirt, naked and vulnerable in my human skin. The chill of the night bit at me, but I welcomed the clear mind that came with the shift. "Who are you? Why are you on Blackwood territory?" The large enforcer's voice was deep, his wolf still close to the surface, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. "Speak, now." I forced myself to meet his gaze, keeping my voice steady despite the tremor in my body. "My name is Cecilia," I managed, my voice hoarse from crying and running. "I am from the Crescent Moon Pack." The words felt foreign on my tongue. I meant no disrespect by trespassing. I simply lost my way. I ran too far. The second enforcer, slightly smaller but no less formidable, sniffed the air around me. He exchanged a skeptical look with his companion. "Lost your way," he rumbled, his voice laced with doubt. "You ran yourself near to death to lose your way, into strange territory." His eyes narrowed. "Are you a rogue or an outcast?" I swallowed, the lie burning on my tongue. I couldn't tell them the truth about Bura, about the severed bond, about Alpha Thorn's decree. It would be exposing my pack's internal politics, a weakness. And what would they believe? That I was just a bitter, crazy wolf? "No," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. "I am not an outcast. I am just seeking peace. I simply ran further than I intended." The large enforcer let out a short, disbelieving huff. "Seeking peace won't get you past our borders unnoticed, Wolf. Your story is thin." He exchanged a look with his partner. "This needs to go higher. You'll come with us. Our alpha is currently at the Alliance meeting with other high-ranking alphas." My heart gave a heavy lurch, a sudden, cold dread replacing the earlier exhaustion. An Alliance meeting. That meant not just the border Pax Alpha, but other powerful leaders from surrounding territories. My desperate escape had inadvertently led me straight into the most imposing gathering of wolves imaginable. I simply nodded, too weary to resist, too broken to care what came next beyond the immediate fear. "I understand," I whispered, pulling my knees to my chest, trying to cover myself. "I will comply." I was a trespasser, accused of vague intentions, but I would face whatever came next with the remnants of my dignity. My true story, however, would remain my own for now.
Chapter 13. The Alliance meeting was a tiresome dance of power and political posturing. My own northern pack was strong, our alliances solid, but I attended these gatherings to gauge the shifts in the delicate balance of power, to read the unspoken truths in the eyes of other alphas. Tonight's host, Alpha Gideon of the Blackwood Pack, was a gruff, territorial male, prone to bluster. The air in the clearing, usually charged with the scent of ambition and stale diplomacy, was thick with the tang of bonfire smoke and the low rumble of male voices. I sat slightly apart from the main circle, observing more than participating. My wolf was restless, a low hum beneath my skin, sensing the underlying tension of the assembly. I preferred action to endless talk. Then the murmurs died. All eyes snapped to the edge of the clearing. Two of Gideon's enforcers, large and grim, were hauling in a trespasser. My brow furrowed. Interlopers were usually dealt with swiftly, quietly. To bring one before a high-level alliance meeting was unusual, suggesting either a significant breach or an uncertain verdict. My gaze locked onto the figure they held. She was in human form, barely clad in what looked like a torn shift that offered little more than a whisper of dignity. Her wild, dark hair was matted with dirt and leaves, and her skin was smudged with earth. But even in her disheveled state, with her head bowed slightly, a raw, untamed beauty emanated from her. Her slender frame, though clearly exhausted, held a surprising tension, a coiled defiance. My wolf snarled, a low, guttural rumble deep in my chest. He hated it. Hated the way she was barely covered, hated the crude, lingering stares of the other alphas that raked over her. It was a blatant disrespect, a predatory assessment of a vulnerable female, and my wolf recoiled from it. A cold wave of protectiveness, sharp and possessive, washed over me, an instinct I rarely felt so intensely. Something in her called to him, a primal pull he didn't understand, urging him to shield her. He simply cared for the vulnerable, and she, despite her defiance, was starkly exposed. The underlying strength within her was palpable, even to them, but they chose to disregard it. Alpha Gideon cleared his throat, his voice gruff. This female was found deep within our borders, trespassing. She claims to be from the Crescent Moon Pack, but her story is vague. He waved a dismissive hand. She was running, she says, lost her way. He scoffed, and a few of the lesser alphas chuckled, their eyes still lingering on her with an unsettling mixture of suspicion and crude appraisal. They knew she was Wolf. Their dismissal was for her lack of clear answers, her vulnerability. She slowly lifted her head then, her eyes, even from this distance, shining with a fierce, unwavering intelligence. Hazel eyes. They were remarkable, piercing through the grime and exhaustion, holding a depth of pain that belied her serene expression. She met Gideon's gaze, then swept her eyes across the circle of powerful alphas, unflinching. "My name is Cecilia," she stated, her voice hoarse but clear, cutting through the murmurs. "I am from the Crescent Moon Pack. I did not mean to trespass. I ran. I ran very far, and I lost my way." Her words were simple, direct, devoid of fear or pleading. There was a raw honesty in her delivery, despite the thinness of her explanation. She didn't sound like a rogue, nor like a liar. She sounded like someone utterly broken, driven by something profound. My wolf nudged, a whisper of recognition, an instinct to protect what was fragile yet strong. Gideon's enforcer stepped forward, pushing her slightly. "She claims to be seeking peace," he stated, his tone mocking, clearly implying disbelief. A wave of frustration rippled through me. They weren't seeing past the surface, too caught up in their own territorial pride and suspicion. This woman, Cecilia, radiated something deeper than a common trespasser. There was a quiet strength in her stillness, a sharp wit in her simple, unembellished answers. She didn't cower. She held her ground, even vulnerable and exposed before a gathering of powerful males. Her defiance was subtle, dignified, and utterly compelling. My gaze intensified on her. She was a wildfire, banked low, but burning with an internal heat. There was a story in those hazel eyes, a complex tragedy that these lesser minds were missing. I had heard whispers of the Crescent Moon Pack's recent troubles, of an attack, of an alpha's son making a political match. My mind made no direct connections, but the knowledge simply reinforced the feeling that she was more than she seemed. This woman was a survivor, and she called to something deep within my wolf, a fundamental urge to protect. Chapter 14. The crude stares of the other alphas, their predatory scents, grated on my senses. My wolf growled low in my mind, a possessive rumble. I wanted to shield her, to hide her from their prying eyes. Not out of pity, but out of a fierce instinctive need to protect something fragile yet strong. Something that resonated with the deepest part of my own wolf, a primal recognition of a kindred spirit. Gideon took a step forward, his posture stiff with authority, his lips parting, no doubt to deliver some final, damning decree. But I didn't give him the chance. "I'll speak," I said, my voice a low, commanding rumble that cut through the firelight and silenced the gathering. The air grew still. Every alpha turned to look at me, surprise flashing in their eyes. Gideon's mouth snapped shut, his glare sharp, but he said nothing, for now. I rose, my large frame casting a long shadow. I moved with deliberate grace, circling around the assembled alphas until I stood directly before Cecilia. Her hazel eyes, wide and wary, met mine. Up close, the depth of her exhaustion was stark. Her human form trembled under the strain, but within her I saw the glint of something unbroken, defiant, enduring. My wolf thudded in my chest, protective and possessive in equal measure. Her torn shift barely concealed her. My wolf snarled again, furious. Without a word, I shrugged off my heavy coat of black wolf fur. The thick pelt carried the scent of pine, wind, and me. I draped it gently around her shoulders, the coat engulfing her form, offering warmth and a clear, unspoken claim. A collective gasp rippled through the clearing. An alpha giving his coat to a trespasser? Unheard of. It wasn't just a gesture, it was a declaration. This female was under my protection. Cecilia flinched slightly, her eyes searching mine with confusion and the faintest flicker of hope. My wolf settled, soothed by her nearness. I kept my voice low, meant only for her. Cecilia of the Crescent Moon Pack, I said, tell me, do you wish to return to your old pack? Her eyes widened. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The silent refusal in her gaze was absolute. Her desperation, her terror, her refusal to go back, it all rang louder than any scream. I turned back to face the circle of alphas, my gaze sweeping across them with the full weight of my authority. This female, I said, my voice rising, unmistakably alpha, will not be judged as a common trespasser. I claim responsibility for her. She will come with me. Gideon's face darkened, fury crackling behind his eyes. Archer, you overstep, he growled. She entered Blackwood territory uninvited. This is not your concern. I held his gaze, mine steady and cold. And I, Archer of the Northern Pack, say it is my concern. I find her worthy of my protection. I will take her into my pack. And if any among you wish to question that judgment, my voice dropped to a dangerous purr, they'll answer to me, directly. My wolf rumbled inside me, eager. The threat was clear. The other alphas shifted uneasily, their gazes no longer predatory, but cautious. They knew my pack's reputation, unyielding, loyal, brutal when crossed. No one here would risk that challenge, not even Gideon, for all his posturing. Cecilia stared at me, stunned. My coat hung around her like a barrier, warm and firm against the cold night and colder stares. It wasn't just comfort, it was promise. I held out my hand. Come with me, Cecilia, I said, my voice gentler now, but no less resolute.
Chapter 15. My heart, a hollow cavern, had forgotten what hope felt like. Yet, standing before the gathered alphas, exposed and trembling, a new, overwhelming presence drew my gaze. Alpha Archer. He moved with a quiet power that eclipsed everyone else in the clearing. He was impossibly tall, his physique lean yet undeniably muscular beneath his dark clothing. His aura, even from a distance, was immense heavy. Up close, it was almost suffocating. I had never seen anyone so strikingly handsome, not even Bura, whose beauty was more familiar. Archer's features were sharp, chiseled, framed by dark, windswept hair, and his eyes, stormy gray, piercing and intense, held a depth that made my breath catch. His presence was not just powerful, it was primal, overwhelming, making my wolf stir with an unfamiliar tremor that wasn't entirely fear. He circled, his movements deliberate, before stopping directly in front of me. Cecilia of the Crescent Moon Pack, he said, his voice a low, resonant rumble that vibrated through the very ground. Tell me, do you wish to return to your old pack? My throat closed. The words died before they could form. Return? To the pack that had betrayed me, discarded me. To the house filled with Emily's triumphant laughter and Bura's haunted, guilty glances. To the graves of my parents whose deaths had been the cruel catalyst for my demise. The very thought was like choking on ash. My wolf, dormant and grieving for so long, stirred with a shudder of pure revulsion. Never, she whimpered inside me. Not there. So I simply stared. I stared at Archer, pouring every ounce of my despair, every shred of my refusal, every unspoken horror of my old life into that silent gaze. I saw a flicker of understanding in his stormy gray eyes, a deep, knowing recognition that went beyond my ragged appearance. He didn't need words. He saw it. He felt it. Then his powerful frame moved, a solid shield between me and the judging eyes of the other alphas. My gaze flicked to my torn shift, the way it barely concealed me, and shame, hot and unwelcome, crept up my neck. Just as quickly, his large hand went to his own shoulder, shrugging off his heavy coat of black wolf fur. The thick, luxurious pelt, radiating his unique scent of pine and crisp mountain air, settled around my shoulders. A wave of warmth, both from the fur and his proximity, immediately enveloped me, a shocking relief against the cold night and the even colder stares. I was grateful, yes, for the sudden dignity and warmth it offered, a stark contrast to my exposed skin. But even as my body welcomed the comfort, my mind whirred with suspicion. Why? What was his game? Alphas didn't just offer protection out of charity, especially not to a trespasser from a weakened pack. What did he want? What was the price for this sudden, overwhelming generosity? My skepticism, honed by recent betrayals, coiled tightly in my gut. He turned back to face the gathered alphas, his gaze sweeping over them, daring any of them to challenge him. This female, he declared, his voice ringing with undisputed authority, will not be judged as a common trespasser. I claim responsibility for her. She will come with me. I heard Alpha Gideon's wounded protest, his territorial pride clearly stung. But Archer's response was a low, dangerous purr, a threat veiled in calm words that left no room for doubt. Any pack that attempts to question my judgment or challenge my claim will answer to me, directly. His wolf rumbled, a deep, guttural sound that silenced any further dissent. Even in my dazed state, I understood the terrifying weight of that statement. No one challenged Alpha Archer. No one challenged the Northern Pack. My mind reeled. Sanctuary. That was the word he had used. A place free from the shadows, from Emily's malice, from Bura's distant regret. A chance to breathe. To exist without the constant, suffocating pressure of my past. What did I have to lose? My parents were gone. My fated mate was gone. My friends, loyal as they were, couldn't save me from the life I was trapped in. There was nothing binding me here, nothing left to hold onto but pain. He turned back to me, his hand extended, strong and steady. "Come with me, Cecilia," he said. I looked at his outstretched hand. It wasn't an act of pity or a cruel manipulation like Emily's. His eyes held a steady, unwavering gaze that demanded a choice. A chance to stop drowning. My own hand, small and trembling, reached out. It hesitated for a fraction of a second, my skepticism warring with a desperate need for refuge, then slid into his. His grip was firm, warm, and utterly solid. And as his fingers closed around mine, a tiny, almost imperceptible spark of hope, fragile yet defiant, ignited in the desolate landscape of my soul. I still didn't understand his motives, but for the first time in moons, I didn't feel utterly alone. Chapter 16. His hand in mine. It was a simple touch, yet it felt monumental, a lifeline thrown to me in a turbulent sea. Archer's skin was warm, firm, and radiated an undeniable strength. My own hand, still faintly trembling, clung to his as he led me away from the bonfire, away from the shocked whispers of the other alphas. I could feel their eyes on my back, but Archer's presence beside me, his coat a heavy, comforting weight on my shoulders, shielded me more effectively than any wall. We didn't walk towards a secluded tent within the camp, as I might have expected. Instead, he led me directly to the edge of the clearing where vehicles were parked, a sight rare and expensive in our simpler pack. My eyes widened in surprise when he stopped beside a sleek, powerful black truck, its dark windows mirroring the night. My pack, though not primitive, relied mostly on shifted wolf forms for long distances. This was a clear sign of wealth and modern power. He opened the passenger door, his gaze steady on mine. "Get in, Cecilia," he commanded, his voice soft but firm. I hesitated for a moment, an instinctual fear of the unknown, of being enclosed, battling with the desperate hope he offered. But his eyes were unwavering, offering a silent reassurance. I climbed inside, the leather seats surprisingly comfortable. He shut the door gently, then moved around to the driver's side. The engine rumbled to life, a low, powerful purr that vibrated through the floor. He didn't speak. He simply put the truck in gear and smoothly pulled away from the Alliance meeting, leaving the flickering bonfire and judging gazes behind. The only sounds were the soft hum of the engine and the occasional rustle of his thick wolf coat around my shoulders. For the next 6 hours, he asked nothing of me. Not a single question about my pack, my past, or the true reasons for my desperate flight. The silence in the cab was not awkward, but understanding. He drove with quiet focus, his hands steady on the wheel, his profile illuminated occasionally by the passing lights of distant towns or the pale glow of the dashboard. I watched him, discreetly at first, then more openly as the hours wore on. He was a pillar of calm strength, his presence radiating an unyielding patience. The contrast to Bura's shadowed guilt and Emily's frantic energy was stark. He simply existed beside me, a solid, protective force. I drifted in and out of a light sleep, exhausted from days of grief and my frantic run. Each time I woke, he was still there, unwavering. As dawn began to paint the sky in soft hues of gray and rose, the landscape outside the window began to change dramatically. The trees grew taller, denser, stretching into vast, unbroken forests that seemed to go on forever. Mountains, rugged and majestic, loomed in the distance, their peaks still capped with snow. This was his territory, the Northern Pack. I had only heard whispers of its vastness, its incredible resources, its unassailable strength. Even from the vehicle, I could feel the power thrumming through the land, a profound energy that spoke of ancient lineage and thriving prosperity. It was immense, wild, and awe-inspiring, dwarfing the relatively smaller, more subdued territory of my former pack. My old pack, in comparison, suddenly felt like a small, struggling village. After what felt like an eternity, but was precisely 6 hours, the truck slowed, pulling onto a wide, well-maintained gravel road that led through an enormous, fortified gate. We were here, the heart of the northern pack. He finally pulled to a stop before a large, beautifully constructed lodge of dark timber and stone, nestled among towering pines. The architecture spoke of enduring strength and deep roots, not the slightly worn practicality of my old pack house. Archer killed the engine, and the sudden silence felt immense. He turned to me, his stormy gray eyes piercing mine. "We're here, Cecilia," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "This is my home. For now, it is yours as well." He opened his door, then came around to mine. He helped me out, his hand warm at my elbow. "Inside, you'll find clothes, food, and a room to yourself, a proper bed." His gaze was steady, reassuring. "Rest, you have earned it." He paused, then added, his voice serious. "My protocol requires that one of my wolves will be assigned to monitor you for the next few days. A necessary precaution for the safety of my pack, given you are a trespasser. This is non-negotiable. But understand this. You are free to come to me anytime if you need anything or if you are ready to speak. No one else will question you without my express permission." I looked at him, then at the vast, silent lodge stretching before us. My mind was still reeling from the journey, from his unexpected kindness, from the sheer scale of his territory. My skepticism lingered, a faint hum beneath my gratitude, but it was being slowly, undeniably chipped away by his actions. He asked for nothing, demanded nothing, yet gave so much. "Thank you, Alpha Archer," I managed, the words a genuine murmur of awe and relief. I accept." A subtle nod. He then turned, and as he walked towards the lodge, 2 other tall, powerfully built figures, silent and watchful, immediately fell into step behind him, their movements mirroring his own. His betas, I assumed, their loyalty radiating from them like heat. He was already resuming his duties as alpha, his focus shifting back to the broader concerns of his pack. I watched him go, then turned to the imposing lodge. The warmth radiating from within seemed to beckon me, not with false promises, but with the quiet offer of sanctuary. It was a new beginning, terrifying and utterly uncertain. I still didn't trust it, not fully. My instincts, burned by betrayal, remained guarded. But for the first time in what felt like forever, the suffocating darkness around me felt a little less absolute. I stepped towards the warmth, towards the fragile glimmer of hope that Archer, the powerful northern alpha, had inexplicably offered me.
Chapter 17. The powerful surge of protectiveness that had driven me to claim Cecilia still vibrated beneath my skin as I helped her from the truck. My wolf rumbled, satisfied for now that she was safe within my territory, within my walls. She stepped towards the imposing lodge, a fragile hope in her eyes. As she entered, I turned, and my 2 betas, Rune and Kale, were already there, stepping out of the shadows cast by the grand entrance. Rune, my lead beta, was a man of quiet strength and sharp intellect, his dark eyes assessing the vehicle and the space Cecilia had just occupied. Kale, my second beta, was broader, more direct, his gaze already locked on me, awaiting command. These were my brothers, forged through years of trust and shared battles, the very pillars of my pack. "Alpha," Rune acknowledged, his voice low. Kale simply nodded, his arms crossed. I told them about her. "The Blackwood Alpha is a fool," Kale immediately grumbled, his irritation palpable. To bring a lone, exhausted wolf before all those vultures. He caught my eye, a shared understanding passing between us. My pack had little patience for disrespect, especially towards the vulnerable or those who could not defend themselves in such a situation. "Indeed," I affirmed, my voice low, "his lack of foresight is his weakness. As for her," I continued, "she will be given space to rest. Rune, assign the rotation for her monitoring, discreetly. Kale, ensure our healers are aware, should she need more than just rest." They nodded, accustomed to my orders, knowing they were always given with purpose and the pack's well-being at heart. Our pack thrived on order, respect, and mutual trust. It was a stark contrast to the volatile political landscape I'd just left. My relationship with my betas, with every wolf in my pack, was built on open communication and unwavering loyalty. They were my right hands, my eyes and ears, and I trusted them implicitly. We discussed patrols, upcoming diplomatic moves, and the general state of the borders for another hour near the lodge entrance, under the vast, silent sky. Finally, I dismissed them for the night, the last stars beginning to fade as the true dawn approached. I strode towards my own chambers, the quiet hum of the sleeping lodge settling around me. Fatigue began to tug at me, a heavy cloak after days of travel and tense negotiations. But my mind remained restless, a faint unease settling over me. The image of Cecilia's haunted eyes, the desperation in her silent plea, lingered. Then, just as I was drifting into sleep, a sound cut through the quiet, a gasp, then a low, choked whimper. My wolf flared to life, instantly alert. My skin prickled, a surge of adrenaline shooting through me like never before. That wasn't just a nightmare. That was pure, unadulterated terror. The sound tore at something deep within me, pulling a protective response that felt almost violently urgent. It felt as if my wolf was trying to burst free, screaming to get to her. I was out of bed in a flash, running silent strides down the corridor, my alpha speed carrying me towards the guest wing. The whimpers grew into desperate cries, then a raw, piercing scream that tore through the night. I burst through the unlocked door, my wolf almost jumping out of my skin with the need to quell that primal fear. "Papa! Nemo! Come back! Please, come back!" Cecilia was thrashing on the bed, tangled in the blankets, sweat beading on her forehead. Her face was contorted in agony, her hazel eyes squeezed shut, tears streaming down her temples even in sleep. "Cecilia!" I called, my voice sharp, authoritative, designed to break through the hold of a dream. "Wake up!" she gasped, her eyes snapping open, wide and unfocused. For a terrifying second, she saw me as another monster from her dream, her wolf's fear radiating from her, a scent of terror so profound it made my own wolf ache. Then, slowly, recognition dawned. Her gaze cleared, focusing on me, and the raw terror in her eyes faded, replaced by stark embarrassment and a lingering dread. "Alpha, Archer," she whispered, her voice trembling, her chest heaving. She curled in on herself, clutching the blankets to her chest, shame painting her face. My wolf, still vibrating with a strange, fierce protectiveness, wanted nothing more than to comfort her, to pull her close and chase away the shadows. But I knew better. She was vulnerable, traumatized, and I was still a stranger, however much my instincts screamed otherwise. Just then, Rune and Kale appeared in the doorway, drawn by her screams, their own wolves on edge, assessing the situation immediately. I held up a hand, a silent command for them to hold. "It's all right," I told them, my voice calm, but my wolf still tense. "A nightmare, nothing more. She's safe." They nodded, their instincts acknowledging my assessment, but their eyes lingered on Cecilia with shared concern. She was a vulnerable female, newly in our pack, haunted by demons. Their loyalty, like mine, extended to all under my protection. I looked at Cecilia, my gaze softening. "You're safe here, Cecilia," I said gently, allowing my alpha comfort to flow in my tone, a balm in the turbulent air. "It was just a dream. Rest now." I turned, giving her privacy, and walked out, my betas falling into step beside me. My wolf, however, didn't settle. The echo of her terrified screams, her desperate pleas for her parents, resonated deep within me. This female carried more pain than I had imagined, and the inexplicable urge to protect her, to truly heal her, had just grown infinitely stronger.
Chapter 18. The next morning, I woke to the gentle glow of sunlight filtering through the windows and a quiet sense of dread. The memory of my screaming, of Archer bursting into my room, crashed over me. My face burned with embarrassment. I had made a spectacle of myself, a weeping, thrashing mess. I expected judgment, questions, maybe even a quiet dismissal. This pack, however kind, must surely have its limits for emotional baggage. I dressed quickly in the soft, new clothes, running a hesitant hand over my hair, wishing I could magically erase the previous night. My stomach churned with anxiety as I opened the door, bracing myself for the inevitable. The lodge was awake, filled with the low hum of voices and the comforting aroma of cooking. I walked towards the communal dining area, my steps tentative, my eyes cast down. "Good morning, Cecilia." A warm, booming voice startled me. It was Boren, the cook who cooked for me last night, a burly wolf with a kind smile. He stood by the kitchen counter, stirring a large pot. "Slept well, I hope. Come have some breakfast. You look like you could use a proper meal after your journey." He piled a plate high with steaming eggs, thick slices of bacon, and fresh fruit, placing it before me with no hint of pity or discomfort in his eyes. Just genuine welcome. "Thank you, Borin," I murmured, surprised by his normalcy. No questions about my scream, no pointed looks. A younger she-wolf, Clara, whose leg was mending and who I had briefly seen yesterday, approached the table with a mug of tea. "Morning, Cecilia," she said with a bright smile. "Heard you might be joining us for some light duties later, helping out in the infirmary. Elder Alara could use a hand." Yes, I'd be glad to," I said, cautiously hopeful. "Provided I'm not more trouble than I'm worth." Clara laughed, a genuine, hearty sound. "Trouble? You mean like a stray rabbit in a badger set? We're a little bigger than that here, Cecilia. Besides, Alpha Archer doesn't take in trouble without a very good reason, and he rarely makes mistakes." Her eyes held a knowing glint, but it was one of trust in her alpha, not judgment of me. My heart eased slightly. They treated me like a normal pack member, not a fragile, broken thing. The subtle awareness of the assigned monitor was there, a soft presence at the edge of my senses, a constant, professional distance that never felt threatening. It was a necessary protocol, as Archer had said, and I found myself oddly comforted by the subtle vigilance. Later that afternoon, drawn by the rhythmic thud of bodies and the sharp scent of sweat, I found myself drawn towards the main training grounds. It was an open, expansive area nestled between towering pines, designed for rigorous practice. As I approached, the sounds grew louder, grunts of effort, the sharp crack of practice weapons, the deeper growls of wolves engaged in sparring. And then I saw him, Archer. He was at the very center, engaged in hand-to-hand combat training with one of his betas, Kale, I recognized. Archer was shirtless, his powerful back gleaming with sweat, corded muscles rippling with every fluid movement. He moved with an almost terrifying grace, each strike precise, each dodge effortless. His skin was tanned, his shoulders broad, tapering to a lean waist. He wasn't just strong, he was perfectly carved, a living sculpture of power and control. My breath hitched. My wolf, who had been dormant for so long, suddenly flared to life within me, a jolt of pure, primal awareness. It was a different kind of pull than Bura's fated bond. This was raw, undeniable attraction, a physical magnetism that bypassed my broken heart and went straight for my very core. He was captivating, mesmerizing. The scent of his effort, of his clean, powerful wolf, filled my senses, making something deep inside me stir with a longing I hadn't felt in years. He blocked a heavy blow from Kale with an easy grace, then spun, his powerful leg sweeping Kale's feet from beneath him. Kale landed with a grunt, grinning. Archer chuckled, a low, rich sound that echoed through the grounds, then offered Kale a hand up. His command over his pack, even in play, was absolute, yet laced with respect and camaraderie. I stood hidden by the trees, watching him. He was everything Bura had aspired to be, but seemed to lack the inner conflict, the shadows. Archer was solid, unwavering, a true alpha. And as I watched his bare skin gleam, his muscles flex, a new, surprising warmth bloomed in my chest. Chapter 19. The days that followed deepened my understanding of the Northern Pack and of Archer himself. The monitoring he'd mentioned was indeed discreet. A different wolf was always somewhere nearby, a faint scent on the wind, a shadow at the edge of my vision, but they never intruded, never questioned. It was a professional vigilance, not a hostile one, and it allowed me a surprising sense of security I hadn't felt since before the attack on my old pack. I continued helping Elder Alara in the infirmary, finding quiet purpose in grinding herbs and preparing poultices. Her gentle wisdom was a comfort, and her questions, when they came, were always soft about the herbs, never about my past. Borin, the jovial cook, continued to pile my plate high, his booming laugh and easygoing nature a constant source of warmth. I even found myself swapping stories with Clara, the warrior in training, about hunting techniques and the best spots for spring flowers, my own laughter, hesitant at first, slowly returning. One brisk afternoon, while carrying a basket of dried lavender back to the infirmary, I overheard raised voices from Alpha Archer's study. The door was ajar, and the tension in the air was palpable. Archer's deep voice was firm, but laced with frustration. "The Timberclaw Alpha insists on rerouting the river through the western plains," Archer said, his voice carrying clearly. "It will save them travel time, but it starves our eastern farmlands during the dry season. We cannot allow it, but a direct refusal could destabilize the alliance." "They're being stubborn, Alpha," Rune, his lead beta, replied, his voice equally grim. "Their pride is wrapped up in this new route, and with the recent attacks in other territories, they want to look strong." "But at our expense," Cale added, his voice sharper. "It's a power play, plain and simple." I paused, hidden in the hallway, the lavender basket heavy in my hands. A familiar kind of problem. My old pack, smaller and constantly navigating stronger neighbors, often faced similar dilemmas. I had spent countless hours listening to my parents, themselves adept at diplomacy through their roles, discuss these subtle power struggles. My own mind, usually bubbling with ideas, saw a potential solution. It was risky, unconventional, but it could work. My heart hammered. Should I? It wasn't my place. I was a trespasser, a guest, barely tolerated by some. But the thought of Archer, so kind, so protective of me, struggling with a problem that my own wits might solve, the idea was strangely compelling. My wolf, usually quiet now, gave a strong, insistent nudge. "Speak." Taking a deep breath, I pushed the study door open fully and stepped inside. 3 pairs of eyes, startled, turned to me. Archer's stormy gray eyes narrowed slightly, surprised by my intrusion. "Forgive my interruption, Alpha," I began, my voice clear and steady despite the tremor in my hands. "But I couldn't help but overhear. The river reroute." Archer's expression was unreadable, a formidable mask. "This is pack business, Cecilia." His tone was firm, a subtle warning. "Indeed," I replied, meeting his gaze directly. "And a classic one. They want convenience, but they want to look strong while taking it. You want to deny them, but you want to avoid open conflict." I paused, then continued, a familiar spark of wit returning to my eyes. "Perhaps the solution isn't to say no, but to say yes, in a way that makes them regret asking." Rune and Cale exchanged bewildered glances. Archer, however, simply watched me, a flicker of intrigue replacing his initial surprise. "Elaborate," he commanded, a challenge in his tone. "Offer them the reroute," I said, stepping closer, warming to my idea. "But attach a condition. Not a hidden one, but one that is transparent and seemingly beneficial to both sides, yet quietly favors yours. For example, if they reroute the river, they also take responsibility for the increased erosion downstream on their side of the new banks, and for the unforeseen impact on the wildlife they're displacing. Offer to help them manage these new responsibilities, for a hefty fee, of course, or perhaps a portion of their resource intake from the new plain they wish to irrigate." My lips curved into a small, confident smile. "It's not a no, Alpha. It's making their yes more trouble than it's worth without ever appearing hostile. It forces them to consider the true cost of their convenience." The study fell silent. Rune's jaw dropped. Cale let out a low whistle of surprise. Archer simply stared at me, his eyes widening almost imperceptibly. His formidable alpha mask had cracked. A slow, utterly astonished smile began to spread across his face, his gaze burning with a new, profound appreciation. "A formidable mind indeed, Cecilia," he murmured, his voice rich with genuine admiration. He pushed back from his desk, rising to his full, imposing height. "You have just untangled a knot my betas and I have been scowling at for a week, and you did it by finding the door, not breaking the wall." He chuckled, a deep, warm sound. "Brilliant, absolutely brilliant." My cheeks flushed, a warmth that had nothing to do with embarrassment. To be seen, to be valued, not for my strength or beauty, but for my mind, for the very essence of my wit, it was a profound feeling. Archer, the formidable alpha, was looking at me as if I held the secrets of the universe. It was a new kind of connection, forged not by fate, but by shared intellect and a surprising, powerful spark of admiration.
Chapter 20. The lodge settled into its nightly hum, the sounds of distant laughter fading, replaced by the soft crackle of the great hall's central fire. I had just finished reviewing the last of the evening's patrol reports, the pack secure, quiet. Yet my own wolf remained restless, a low, persistent thrumming beneath my skin, a pull I'd felt ever since a distraught, half-clothed she-wolf had been brought before me in Gideon's clearing. The urge to seek her out, to simply be near her, had become a quiet constant. I found myself drawn not to my chambers for much-needed sleep, but to the common room. And there she was, Cecilia, curled in an armchair by the dying firelight, engrossed in one of the ancient pack histories from my library. The fire cast a warm golden glow on her dark hair, highlighting the delicate curve of her jaw, the soft line of her throat. She looked peaceful, a stark contrast to the haunted, shattered female I'd first seen. My wolf surged, a powerful wave of something akin to profound contentment. I had been watching her subtly ever since she arrived. My appointed monitors ensured her physical safety, but my own eyes had sought her out repeatedly. I saw how easily she integrated into the pack. Old Boren, the gruff cook, chuckled louder when she was nearby. Clara, the young warrior, sought her out for quiet conversation. Even Rune, who rarely showed overt approval, had given a subtle nod when I mentioned her insight on the Timberclaw issue. She hadn't just joined the pack, she was weaving herself into its very fabric, her laughter, hesitant at first, now becoming more frequent, a light, melodic sound in the halls. She had changed so much from the screaming, broken wolf I'd found weeks ago. Life was returning to her eyes, a vibrant glow replacing the desolate emptiness that had gripped her soul. Watching her bloom, even from a distance, had become a private source of immense satisfaction for me and my wolf. I remembered watching her during training from a distance, of course. My wolf had surged at the sight of her, that strong, primal urge to protect. And when I had been sparring with Kale, shirtless and sweating, I had felt her gaze on me from the edge of the woods. And secretly, I had loved it. My wolf had preened, a possessive satisfaction settling deep in my bones. She was strong, witty, intelligent, everything I valued, and she carried it all with a grace and resilience that defied her devastating past. I stepped into the common room, the floorboards creaking faintly under my weight. She looked up, her hazel eyes wide, a flicker of surprise, then a cautious welcome. "Still awake, Cecilia?" I asked, my voice softer than my usual command tone, trying for casual. I settled into the armchair opposite her, the fire casting dancing shadows between us, the silence stretching comfortably. "Couldn't sleep." She closed the book, setting it aside. "Just finishing a chapter, Alpha. Your pack's history is quite compelling." She smiled, a small, genuine curve of her lips. "I take it the Timberclaw situation is resolved?" "Smoothly," I confirmed, a hint of pride in my voice, pride in her contribution. "Thanks to your cunning courtesy." I watched her cheeks flush slightly, a warmth that was not from the fire. "How are you finding the pack, Cecilia? Are you comfortable here, truly?" Her gaze softened, losing some of its guardedness. "More than comfortable, Alpha," she admitted, her voice low. "I haven't felt this safe, this welcomed in a very long time. Your pack, they are kind, genuinely kind. And," she paused, a slight tremor in her voice, "you have been unwavering." My eyes met hers, and something profound shifted in the air between us. The usual easy banter, the cautious respect, deepened into a palpable current, an undeniable force. Her hazel eyes, luminous in the firelight, held mine captive. All other thoughts, all other duties dissolved. There was only her resilience, her intelligence, her beauty, the fierce, undeniable pull of my wolf towards her, roaring in recognition. Her gaze flickered, moving from my eyes to my mouth, lingering on my lips. A spark ignited there, a silent, daring invitation. My breath hitched. This was no longer just instinct. This was mutual. I couldn't hold myself back a moment longer. It was a raw, impulsive need, bypassing all logic, all protocol, all the careful boundaries I had set. My hand shot out to cup the side of her face, my thumb caressing her jawline. I leaned in, slowly at first, giving her every chance to pull away, but her eyes remained locked on mine, wide and inviting. My mouth found hers, a sudden, fierce collision. It was a kiss born of raw instinct, of weeks of suppressed admiration, of an overwhelming, potent, inexplicable pull that had woven itself into the very fabric of my wolf. Her lips were soft, yielding immediately, not just in shock, but with a burgeoning hunger that mirrored my own. I deepened the kiss, allowing my hunger, my burgeoning desire to flood through me, to pour into her. Her taste was intoxicating, a mix of wood smoke, autumn leaves, and something uniquely hers that ignited every cell in my body. Then I felt it. Her small, strong hands clawed into the back of my tunic, gripping the fabric possessively as the kiss deepened. Her mouth opened under mine, a silent invitation, and a soft moan, a sound of pure, unbridled desire, escaped her throat, swallowed by my lips. Her response was immediate, intense and utterly consuming, meeting my ferocity with her own. My wolf roared in triumph, a deep, guttural sound of ultimate satisfaction, finally claiming what he had instinctively protected. This was more than a kiss. It was a profound declaration of shared, undeniable hunger. I pulled back just slightly, my thumb still caressing her jaw, my other hand instinctively moving to her waist, pulling her closer until no space remained between us. My gaze, fierce and possessive, locked on her wide, breathless eyes. Her lips were swollen, parted, still tingling from the intense contact, her breath coming in ragged gasps. A flush spread across her cheeks, a vivid blush of passion and profound shock. "You are so beautiful, Cecilia," I murmured, my voice rough, thick with an emotion I hadn't intended to voice so soon, so powerfully. Absolutely breathtaking. The admission hung in the air between us, a new, untamed territory we had just stumbled into. She was a revelation, and I knew, unequivocally, that nothing would ever be the same.
Chapter 21. My lips still tingled from Archer's kiss. It had been a shock, a profound violation of the emotional walls I'd built around myself, yet my wolf had vibrated with a primal satisfaction that both thrilled and terrified me. That morning, I moved through the lodge in a haze, the memory of his intense gaze, his raw admission of "you are so beautiful," replaying in my mind. He hadn't just kissed me. He had claimed me in that moment, with a ferocity that was nothing like the gentle, almost tender affection Bura had once shown. This was a force of nature, and I was scared of it. Scared of the intensity, scared of losing myself again, scared of seeing that cold dismissal in Archer's eyes, just as I had seen in Bura's. So I avoided him, deliberately. I rose early, long before the alpha stirred, spending hours in the quiet of the infirmary with Alara. I lingered in the kitchens, helping Boren until late afternoon, finding excuses to be anywhere but where Archer might be. It was a cowardly act, I knew, but the raw power of him, the sheer undeniable pull he exerted, was overwhelming. My wolf thrummed with a longing that both thrilled and unnerved me. She wanted to seek him out, but I, the human part of me, was too afraid of what that desire might mean, of being consumed by another potent connection only to be discarded. I spent my day working, observing the pack. I saw Archer from a distance, moving through his territory. He didn't just command, he led. He didn't just rule, he cared. His interactions with his betas, Rune and Kale, were filled with respect and a shared purpose. The easy confidence of his warriors, the genuine warmth of his cook, the way even the smallest pup looked up at him with unburdened awe, that's what truly captivated me. He wasn't the conflicted, burdened alpha Bura had been forced to become. Archer was solid, unwavering, a bedrock of strength and integrity. His pack wasn't just strong, it was healthy, thriving under his capable hand. My wolf, vibrant and alert within me now, admired him completely. Not just his strength, his sharp mind, or his undeniable beauty, but the very essence of his being, his leadership, his protectiveness, his capacity for genuine care. And I wanted him. The intensity of that desire, building with every glimpse of his powerful presence, every murmur of his deep voice, was a shock. Throughout my life, Bura had been the only one my wolf had truly wanted, the fated connection undeniable. But that want, that deep-seated longing for the mate the moon goddess had given me, was now nothing in comparison to the fierce, consuming pull I felt towards Archer. It was late afternoon, the communal dining hall already filling with pack members for the evening meal. I was attempting to immerse myself in a book by the main hearth, trying to appear unconcerned, when the subtle shift in the air caught my attention. The scent of pine and crisp mountain air intensified, unmistakably Archer. My heart, which had been beating a steady rhythm, leaped into a frantic gallop. I gripped the book tighter, pretending not to notice him approach, praying he would simply pass by. He didn't. His shadow fell over my pages. I swallowed hard, still refusing to look up. "Still avoiding me, Cecilia?" His voice, a low, charming rumble, filled with an undertone of steely command, sent shivers down my spine. It was a question, but one that demanded a truthful answer and brooked no further evasion. My hands trembled. I I'm simply busy, Alpha, I mumbled, my desperate lie flimsy. My gaze darted around, anywhere but his eyes, aware of the curious glances from nearby tables. He chuckled, a low, rich sound that seemed to vibrate through the very floor. Busy avoiding me, then? A shame. My wolf is quite offended by your sudden elusiveness. He knelt, placing a large, warm hand over mine on the book, forcing me to look up. His stormy gray eyes, usually so controlled, blazed with a raw intensity, a possessive fire. He was absolutely magnetic, utterly commanding. "Tell me why," he commanded, his voice a low growl that vibrated through my bones. His alpha dominance, usually a subtle hum, was now a powerful roar, surrounding me, consuming me. "Why are you keeping your distance?" Tears pricked at my eyes, surprising me with their sudden sting. The sheer power of him, combined with my own fear, overwhelmed me. I was scared. Scared to see regret in your eyes. My voice cracked on the last word, betraying the depth of my terror, the raw wound of my past. His eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with something fierce and utterly possessive. A muscle in his jaw clenched. He didn't speak. Instead, his gaze, burning with an unwavering conviction, searched mine. Then his hand left my chin, reaching up to cup the side of my head, his fingers tangling in my hair. His mouth found mine, a sudden, fierce collision. It was a kiss born of raw instinct, of an overwhelming, potent, inexplicable pull that had woven itself into the very fabric of my wolf. His lips were soft, yielding immediately, not just in shock, but with a burgeoning hunger that mirrored my own. I deepened the kiss, allowing my hunger, my burgeoning desire to flood through me, to pour into him. His taste was intoxicating, a mix of wood smoke, autumn leaves, and something uniquely his that ignited every cell in my body. He pulled back just slightly, his thumb still caressing my jaw, his other hand instinctively moving to my waist, pulling me closer until no space remained between us. His gaze, fierce and possessive, locked on my wide, breathless eyes. My lips were swollen, parted, still tingling from the intense contact, my breath coming in ragged gasps. A flush spread across my cheeks, a vivid blush of passion and profound shock. "Do you think I regret, Cecilia?" he murmured, his voice rough, thick with an emotion I hadn't intended to voice so soon, so powerfully. Absolutely breathtaking. Before I could even process his words, before I could answer, he scooped me up into his arms. I gasped, startled, my arms instinctively going around his neck, the book clattering unnoticed to the floor. I heard the collective gasp from pack members around us. Their murmurs ceased. Archer, carrying me effortlessly, his face set in a look of undeniable command, strode directly towards the Alpha's private wing. He walked past startled faces, past conversations that died abruptly, his gaze fixed straight ahead, radiating an undeniable Alpha claim. His message was clear. There was no shame here, no regret. My cheeks burned with a mix of embarrassment and a thrilling, terrifying sense of being utterly seen, utterly protected, utterly wanted. He didn't stop until he reached his private chambers. The air crackled with unspoken intensity as he nudged the heavy door open with his foot and carried me inside. The latch clicked shut, plunging us into a sudden, intimate silence, broken only by our ragged breaths and the roaring beat of my own heart. He lowered me gently to my feet, but kept me caged against the door, his hands still on my waist. His eyes, dark and consuming, bore into mine. My own hands found the back of his tunic, gripping the fabric possessively as his lips found mine again. My mouth opened under his, a soft moan, a sound of pure, unbridled desire, escaped my throat, swallowed by his lips. My response was immediate, intense, and utterly consuming, meeting his ferocity with my own. It was a wild, desperate claiming, a primal affirmation that this was what my wolf truly desired. His wolf roared in triumph, a deep, guttural sound of ultimate satisfaction. This was more than a kiss. It was a profound declaration of shared, undeniable hunger. The next morning I woke in Archer's bed, the furs impossibly soft, the lingering scent of him all around me. My body ached, but it was a pleasant soreness, a testament to the passion of the night. My heart felt lighter than it had in months, bubbling with a fragile, soaring happiness. I managed to slip out of his room and make my way to the dining hall, a shy smile touching my lips. But my attempt at subtlety was met with knowing grins and soft nudges from pack members. Boren winked at me from the kitchen. Clara giggled, her cheeks flushed as I passed. News, it seemed, traveled faster than even a speeding wolf. The alpha had made his claim, publicly, undeniably, and the pack was both surprised and quietly pleased. Then I saw him, Archer, stepping into the hall. His hair was still tousled from sleep. He caught my gaze across the room and winked. I couldn't help but smile. He was walking toward me, casual and sure, and for a fleeting second everything felt okay. Then the doors burst open. "Alpha Archer," he gasped, panting. "From the south, a delegation has arrived, unannounced, from the Crescent Moon Pack." My mug clattered to the table, tea sloshing over the side. My heart plunged, colder than mountain ice. My eyes shot to the hall entrance, and there they were walking in, their expressions a mix of grim determination and icy pride. Emily, her smirk already twisting her beautiful face, her eyes narrowed in triumphant malice. And beside her, Bura, his dark eyes wide, fixed on me across the crowded hall, a look of shocked, agonizing recognition on his face. They were here, my past, my broken world crashing into my fragile new beginning. All the healing, all the hope, all the fragile joy I had found in the Northern Pack vanished in the face of their sudden, horrifying presence. The air seemed to condense, sucking all the oxygen from my lungs. My world, which had just begun to mend, shattered all over again.
Chapter 22. The next morning, the lodge was alive with a different kind of buzz. I woke with a profound sense of contentment, a satisfaction that hummed through my very bones. The night with Cecilia had been beyond anything I had anticipated. She was fierce, passionate, and utterly captivating. My wolf, usually a disciplined force, had found a profound calm in her presence, a feeling of rightness I hadn't known I was missing. I made my way to the dining hall, the heart of our pack's morning rhythm. Knowing looks followed me from every table. Pack members, usually respectful of my privacy, caught my eye with knowing grins. I even caught Boren winking at me from the kitchen, a wide, pleased smile on his face. My public claim of Cecilia last night, carrying her through the common room, was an unusual but widely accepted form of acknowledgement in our pack. I felt a quiet satisfaction in the clear understanding of my intentions, and in my pack's subtle, collective approval. I found Cecilia at a table near the hearth, laughing softly, a genuine unburdened sound that warmed me deeper than the fire. She looked beautiful, her face still softly flushed with the lingering warmth of our shared night. Then, a sudden, unfamiliar scent hit me, sharp and cloying. Just as the scent registered, a messenger wolf, out of breath and frantic, burst into the dining hall. "Alpha Archer," he gasped, panting. "From the south, a delegation has arrived, unannounced, from the Crescent Moon Pack." My gaze immediately snapped to Cecilia. Her laughter died. Her face, which had been so alive moments ago, drained of all color. I watched as the cup she held clattered from her grasp, tea spilling in a dark stain on the polished floor, utterly forgotten. Her eyes, wide and horrified, fixed on the main entrance, reflecting a terror I hadn't seen since her nightmare. My wolf, who had been purring contentedly moments before, suddenly bristled, his fur rising along my spine. I walked to stand beside her. Then they appeared, already striding confidently into the dining hall. A golden-haired female, radiating that cloying, malicious scent, walked beside a dark-haired male, both carrying themselves with an air of proud self-importance. Their eyes immediately found Cecilia, and a predatory smirk twisted the female's lips. The male's eyes widened in shock as he took in the scene, Cecilia visibly shaken, and me, standing too close to her, radiating an undeniable claim. The entire dining hall fell silent, the cheerful buzz replaced by a thick, suffocating tension. My wolf surged forward, a cold, possessive fury overriding all other instincts. This was my pack, my Cecilia, and these unwelcome intruders were clearly connected to her terror. I stepped forward, subtly positioning myself in front of Cecilia, my body a shield, blocking her from their direct line of sight as much as possible. I felt her tremble behind me, a raw vulnerability that ignited my protective instincts even further. "Alpha Archer," the dark-haired male began, stepping forward, his voice strained as he tried to project calm authority. He introduced himself as Bura, son of Alpha Thorn, and the female as Luna Emily. We came to discuss the recent incidents near our shared borders, and to formally inquire about the welfare of our pack member. His eyes, though wary, held a challenging glint as he looked at me, then briefly passed me to Cecilia. The puzzle pieces clicked into place. Bura and Emily, the Crescent Moon pack, her former pack. Her welfare, Alpha Bura, is no longer your concern, I stated, my voice low and dangerous, dripping with cold Alpha command. My wolf rumbled, ready to strike. Cecilia is under my protection now. She is a member of the Northern Pack, and she is thriving, as you can plainly see. My gaze, sharp and unwavering, held his, a silent battle of wills already raging. Emily, however, wouldn't be silenced. She stepped forward, closer to Bura, her hand resting possessively on his arm. We are here to get her back. After all, we are very concerned for her. We're sure she's still heartbroken and lost after the severing of her bond with Bura. It was a tragic necessity, but we care. We truly do, she began, her voice sickeningly sweet, yet it grated on my ears like nails on stone. She paused, her eyes glinting with malicious triumph as she looked from Bura to me, then back to Cecilia, her smile a thin, cruel line. He was her fated mate, a bond given by the goddess herself, tragically severed, of course. Poor Cecilia left quite broken. Some wolves simply can't move on, can they? So she ran away. Her words, delivered with saccharine venom, were a direct, cruel assault on Cecilia's deepest wounds. And then it all made sense. The screams, the night terrors, the hollow look in her eyes, each moment of pain she'd never spoken about. From her cries, I had known her parents were dead. But this truth, that even her fated mate had betrayed her, discarded her like she meant nothing, was a wound far deeper than I had imagined. My wolf snarled, a visceral roar of pure hatred for this woman. Fated mate. The term, used so casually as a weapon, ignited a white-hot fury in my veins. I despised Bura for having once held that sacred bond with Cecilia, and hated Emily for wielding it so carelessly, for inflicting such needless pain. I felt shame. Shame on the man who could stand there so calmly, so smugly, after shattering something as sacred as a mate bond. How could Bura even look at her, at Cecilia, after what he had done? What a disgrace of a wolf. My hand clenched into a fist at my side, my knuckles white. And Cecilia, she didn't flinch. She didn't speak. She just stood there, chin high, shoulders steady, eyes unreadable, a stillness more powerful than any scream. Emily's smile twitched, irritated by the lack of reaction. And that's when she struck again. Of course, she added louder now, letting her gaze sweep across the assembled alphas. None of this is really about Bura, is it? Poor Cecilia's always carried such darkness with her. You do remember what happened to her parents, don't you? Tragic. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Emily's tone softened, feigning innocence. I only wonder what your pack has welcomed, Alpha Archer. Sometimes the broken ones are broken for a reason. My voice dropped, becoming a low, dangerous growl that resonated with the full power of my Alpha command. You will cease speaking ill of my mate. The words my mate hung heavy in the air, a possessive, unmistakable claim echoing through the silent dining hall. Every head in the room snapped to attention, the implication undeniable. Bura's face flushed, his jaw dropped, his eyes widened further, a mixture of shock and incandescent rage blooming in their depths. Your mate, he snarled, taking a step forward, his own wolf rising, bristling at my blatant disrespect and challenge to his past claim. There is no mating claim on her. There will be soon, I stated, my voice an icy calm that belied the fury raging within me. My wolf vibrated with a readiness to fight, to prove my claim. I took a step forward, my presence utterly dominating his. And any wolf, fated or otherwise, who dares to harm her again, with words or deeds, will answer to me, personally. My eyes narrowed, promising brutal retribution. Bura let out a guttural growl, his muscles tensing, ready to launch himself at me. The air crackled, taut with impending violence. Just as I prepared for his lunge, a new, firm voice cut through the tension. Enough! It wasn't me, it was Cecilia. She stepped out from behind me, her head held high, her hazel eyes blazing not with terror, but with a cold, clear fury I hadn't seen in her before. Her voice, though softer than an alpha's roar, carried absolute authority, stopping both Bura and me in our tracks. She looked at Emily, her gaze unflinching. You speak of concern, you speak of care? She scoffed, a raw, bitter laugh escaping her lips. You revel in another's pain, Emily. You build your so-called Luna status on the ashes of a life you actively destroyed. You are a viper indeed, and your words are as empty as your heart. Emily's smirk faltered, replaced by genuine shock, then a furious glare. Cecilia then turned to Bura, her eyes filled with a profound sadness that bordered on contempt. And you, Bura, you allowed this. You stood by. You were my protector, my fated mate, and you let me be broken because it was necessary. You talk of claiming me now? There is nothing left for you to claim. You severed it. You chose, and now I choose. Her gaze swept the hall, encompassing every silent, watching wolf. Her chin lifted. I choose this pack. I choose Alpha Archer, and I choose to no longer be defined by your weakness or your Luna's cruelty. She then looked from Bura to Emily, her voice gaining a steely edge. You will leave this hall. Now, your presence here poisons the air. You are not welcome. My Alpha's generosity is not for you to abuse, and I have no more tears to waste on your pathetic charade. The silence was deafening. No one moved. No one dared. Emily's face was a mask of furious disbelief, while Bura stood utterly stunned, his mouth slightly agape, the anger slowly draining from his face, replaced by a dawning, terrible realization. My wolf watched, a deep, satisfied rumble echoing within me. She is magnificent. She wasn't just standing up for herself, she was commanding them. Her raw dignity, her unwavering truth, were more powerful than any alpha's roar. Emily, ever the pragmatist, was the first to regain her composure, though her eyes promised future retribution. She tugged Bura's arm, her voice low. Bura, we leave. Now. Bura stared at Cecilia for another long moment, a final flicker of agonizing regret and despair crossing his features before he allowed Emily to drag him towards the exit. They retreated, their proud stances deflating into hurried departure under the silent, collective gaze of the northern pack. As the doors swung shut behind them, the tension in the dining hall slowly dissipated. Murmurs erupted, but these were murmurs of awe, not judgment. I turned to Cecilia, reaching for her, my hand gently cupping her jaw. She was trembling, the adrenaline of her outburst finally catching up to her. Her eyes, still blazing with residual fury, met mine. Alpha, she began, her voice shaking, then she cast a quick glance around the dining hall, at all the watching faces. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have. My thumb stroked her cheek. Sorry? I interrupted, my voice low, filled with a deep, fierce pride. My wolf purred in absolute contentment. Why are you the one being sorry, Cecilia? They are the disgrace. They brought their poison here. There is nothing I want more than to tear them apart, to chase them to the ends of the earth for what they did to you. My voice hardened, revealing the raw anger that still simmered within me. Rune and Kale, who had moved closer, nodded in unison. They deserved worse, Alpha, Kale growled, his own wolf agreeing. A disgrace to their rank. Cecilia leaned into my touch, her eyes softening, then a faint, weary smile touched her lips. No, Alpha, she murmured, her voice quiet but firm, filled with a profound wisdom. They're not worth it. Let them go. They're not worth our peace. Her words, delivered with such calm conviction after such a raw display of strength, settled deep within me. My wolf, raging for vengeance moments ago, quieted, submitting to her profound truth. She was right. They weren't worth it. Her peace, our peace, was far more valuable. I nodded, my decision made. As you wish, I conceded, my voice still low, meant only for her ears. My thumb stroked her cheek again, then I gently turned her face towards the main door, subtly guiding her away from the remaining curious eyes of the pack members. Come. She understood. Without a word, she allowed me to lead her from the dining hall, past the now murmuring pack members whose expressions were filled with a new kind of respect for her, a new understanding of my claim. Her quiet strength in that moment, silencing Bura and Emily more effectively than any alpha command, had sealed her place here, irrevocably. I led her directly to my private chambers, the same room where our passion had ignited hours earlier. The air within was still faintly scented with our shared night, a warm promise of intimacy. I closed the heavy door behind us, the latch clicking with a quiet finality, sealing us in. She stood before me, her hazel eyes still holding a faint tremor of past pain, but also a luminous trust. I reached out, my hands gently cupping her face. You were incredible, I murmured, my thumbs caressing her skin, more magnificent than any Luna I have ever seen. A faint blush rose to her cheeks, but her gaze was steady. They broke something vital in me, Archer, she whispered, her voice fragile, a raw admission. The bond, my trust, my hope. My heart ached for her, a deep, protective ache that went beyond mere desire. I know, I replied, my voice rough with emotion, and I hate them for it. But they could not break you. Never. You are still whole, Cecilia, more so than they could ever imagine. My fingers threaded through her soft, dark hair, pulling her closer until no space remained between us. Her eyes, full of tears she refused to shed, searched mine. No regrets? She asked, her voice a whispered plea, the ghost of Bura's betrayal still haunting her. My answer was immediate, fierce and absolute. Never. Only certainty. Only you. I lowered my head, my lips finding hers in a slow, tender kiss that spoke volumes of reverence and promise. This was not a kiss of primal hunger, but of deep affection, of healing, of choosing. She melted into me, her hands finding purchase on my shoulders, then moving to tangle in my hair. Her response was unburdened, complete. The fear, the past, the pain, in that moment it all seemed to recede, replaced by a profound, soaring sense of belonging. My wolf surged, not with a roar, but with a deep, resonant hum of absolute contentment. I deepened the kiss, scooping her into my arms, carrying her to my bed. The furs were soft beneath us, a cocoon of warmth and safety. Every touch was gentle, every caress a balm to her wounds. She responded with an eager, soft desperation, her body molding against mine, her scent filling my senses, a potent mix of soft lavender and her unique, intoxicating sweetness. Her wolf, no longer a grieving shadow, purred and stretched within her, eager to finally merge. As our bodies intertwined, as our breaths mingled, as our very essence joined, it wasn't just a physical act. It was a profound intertwining of souls. A healing balm poured into the deepest cracks of her spirit. There was no severing here, no regret, no forced obligation. There was only choice, only desire, only the quiet, powerful affirmation of two beings finding their true home in each other. Her small, strong hands clutched my back, her nails gently digging into my skin, a silent, primal declaration of possession, of belonging. When it was over, we lay entangled, bathed in the soft morning light filtering through the window. Her head rested on my chest, her breathing soft and even. Her hand lay limply over my heart, and I felt the slow, steady beat beneath her palm. My wolf was utterly at peace, a quiet warmth spreading through me. There was no need for words. In her peaceful sleep, in the relaxed weight of her body against mine, I felt a connection far deeper than any ancient bond of fate. She was mine. Not by decree, not by a goddess's mark, but by choice, by shared pain, and by an undeniable, growing love. And in that quiet moment, I knew that my journey, my purpose, was irrevocably linked to hers, my mate, my Luna, found not in destiny, but forged in the crucible of loss and a resilient, unwavering spirit. The Northern Pack had gained more than a member. It had gained its heart, and I had found my own.
And there we have it, a journey through the shadows and into the dawn. Thank you for letting me share their story of healing and unbreakable bonds with you. This is Vivienne Solace, signing off for the week.